Chapter 44-55. Are you still going to stop the Fortune Gates army? The great golden-winged roc asked with a faint smile. I'm not crazy. The red flame vermilion bird laughed. Why would I make you unhappy for no reason? Besides, the Taoist and Confucian cultivators on the hidden immortal continent are mortal enemies. Aren't the Fortune Gates disciples going to turn the hidden immortal continent upside down? Won't the Thousand Demons' sacred realm be able to take advantage of that? If that's the case. The great golden-winged roc ordered, Dragon Sage, pass down the great Sage Hall's order. Don't stop the Taoists' army. Let them go back and find trouble with the Confucian cultivators. We'll continue to discuss the matter of Qijing. Yes, I understand. The mystic armored Pentaceratops nodded in agreement. Xiao Hua accompanied Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu as they flew into the sky. Starlight once again appeared in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. The great Sage Hall's silhouette appeared majestic in the sky. Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu stopped and looked at the grand occasion that seemed to be right in front of them. How is that possible? Fairy Xingyu turned pale with fright. Heaven-defying Thunder Phoenix? The Seven Stars Great Sage from before? Why don't I have any records of him? Moreover, once the Seven-Star Great Saint enters the Great Sage Hall, he will immediately become the strongest expert of the demon race. The power structure of the entire Thousand Demons' sacred realm will change greatly. This is something that has never happened before in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. Not only that. Su Ji's expression changed. Although the 6 great sages of the Great Sage Hall were powerful, they were not united. They fought for their own interests and rarely extended their hands out of the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. Now that the 7 great sages of the Great Sage Hall have become sworn brothers, won't they be expanding the Thousand Demons' sacred realm? Although the human race has a lot of people, our true strength is still incomparable to the demon race. The grudge between the Confucian cultivators and the Buddhist sect has not been resolved. If the demon race rises again, the 3 continents will not be peaceful in the future. Su Ji. After Su Ji finished speaking, Fairy Xingyu said, You might not have been in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm before, but the 7 Stars Great Sage who entered the Great Sage Hall was more powerful than this. It was said that the Thousand Demons' sacred realm was filled with stars that illuminated the Thousand Demons' sacred realm for 81 days and nights. Although the stars had already passed by the time I arrived, the power of the stars and moon in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm is extremely powerful, far surpassing what I've seen. What? Far beyond what you can see? Xingyue, you mean? Su Ji almost didn't dare to believe his ears, and he said in shock, You've never seen it in the celestial realm? Not bad. Fairy Xingyu nodded affirmatively. This reminds me of some of the secrets of the Demon League that the Palace of Justice has. Hearing that this was a secret of the Palace of Justice, Su Ji frowned and only responded in a low voice, not asking any more questions. Fairy Xingyu also knew that these secrets could not be divulged. She only explained, the Star of the Stars, the Saint of all Saints. I suspect that this 7 Stars Great Saint is not only the 7 Stars Great Saint, but also the so-called Saint of all Saints in the Demon League. Kill. Xiao Hua's heart stirred, and he said, Although I'm somewhat familiar with this heaven-defying Thunder Phoenix, and previously Bai Qingyu also obtained some of his main force, I didn't expect him to have such great achievements. If the 2 seniors have any misgivings, please allow me to go and kill him. No. Su Ji shook his head and said, Even if the first great saint of the demon clan is the saint of all saints, it has nothing to do with us. We won't interfere in the affairs of the 3 continents. Of course, Xiao Hua, if you think that this great saint will hinder the prosperity of the human clan and cause endless killing, you can go ahead and kill him. Fairy Xingyu looked at Xiao Hua thoughtfully, as if pondering whether what Xiao Hua said was true. Then, she shook her head and said, The Star of the Stars is a demon clan expert who possesses the power of the stars. Not only is his strength outstanding, but his luck is also on par with the stars. With the ability of the human clan, I'm afraid we can't get rid of him. Xiao Hua, since you're familiar with him, you'd better be careful. Xiao Hua heaved a sigh of relief and nodded. I understand. I'll try my best to befriend him. If he doesn't offend me, I won't touch him either. Let's go. This has nothing to do with us. Su Ji waved his hand and said, the ones with a headache should be Immortal Emperor Go-Chen and Vairocana revered Buddha. Su Ji was right. At this time, in the Thunder Temple, the Buddhas were silent. Whether it was bodhisattvas, arhats, or heavenly kings, they all put their palms together and looked at the Buddhist cloud in front of the Thunder Temple. At this time, the Buddhist cloud was a little dim. The endless heavenly flowers and Sanskrit chanting inside had long been blocked by the dazzling starlight. The Buddhist cloud was like a mirror, revealing the strange starlight of the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. Of course, the outline of the Great Sage Hall, which should have been the clearest, could not be seen at all. The heaven-defying Thunder Phoenix and the other 7 Saint Star demon bodies could not be revealed. The only thing the Buddhas could see was the endless starlight. The dazzling starlight only lasted for a moment. Then, a breeze blew, and the Buddhist radiance shone brightly, completely covering the starlight. The Vairocana revered Buddha's voice rang in the Buddha's ears, Amitabha. The radiance of the stars and the moon is the radiance of heaven and earth. Only my Buddhist radiance is the radiance of humanity. The radiance of the stars and the moon originates from nature, while the Buddhist radiance comes from one's own body. When the radiance of the stars and the moon enters one's body, no matter how strong one's strength is, it's only relying on external forces. The Buddhist radiance is one's foundation, one's own self. My Buddha. The Namo Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva put his palms together and said, Buddhism is formed by faith, and light is born from thoughts. Heaven and earth may change, but the Buddhist radiance is inexhaustible because of faith. Namo Amitabha. Namo Amitabha. The Buddhas lowered their brows and chanted. For a moment, the sky was filled with peanuts. Strands of faith power were born out of thin air and surged into the radiance behind the Namo Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva's head. After a while, the Namo Dipankara archaic Buddha said, Namo Amitabha. A few days ago, the Thousand Demons' sacred realm's 7 stars of the Big Dipper descended. According to the demon race's cultivation, a great sage descending. Previously, the Great Sage Hall already had 6 great sages. With this one, there should be 7 great sages. Namo Amitabha. The revered one is right. The Namo Mahatma Samantabhadra Bodhisattva put his palms together and replied, this 7th great sage is different from the previous 6 great sages. He caused the 7 stars of the Big Dipper to descend. According to the demon race's words, he's a 7 stars great sage. His strength should be 7 times that of an ordinary great sage. Speaking up to this point, the Namo Mahatma Samantabhadra Bodhisattva frowned and said, however, for the stars to shine today, and the entire Thousand Demons' sacred realm to be covered in starlight, it's really strange. Could it be that the 7th great sage had entered the Great Sage Hall and triggered the demon race's secret impartation? The starlight is 100 times more abundant than usual, and it also covers the Thousand Demons' sacred realm for 81 days and 81 nights. The overall strength of the demon race in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm has increased. In the distance, the dragon-slaying Arhat took a step forward and put his palms together. Revered One, the Buddha aura has been appearing frequently in our Pure Land world recently. Not only has the Namo Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva and the Namo Mahatma Samantabhadra Bodhisattva returned to their positions, even the long-lost Namo Maitreya Buddha has descended in the Thunder Temple. It can be said that the Buddha aura is boundless and the Buddha aura is shining everywhere. If nothing unexpected happens, our Pure Land world's Buddhist sect has already taken the lead among the Buddhist, Confucian, and demon sects of the 3 continents. As long as we complete the sutra seeking extreme bliss, the hidden immortal continent will also be filled with Buddhist lotuses. When the hidden immortal continent is at its peak, the Thousand Demons' sacred realm will no longer be a concern. However, the Thousand Demons' sacred realm has a strange phenomenon today. It's actually a myriad of stars shining in the sun. I'm afraid that the day of the Buddha Aura's descent into the thousand demons' sacred realm will be delayed. In this disciple's opinion, the demon race must have sensed a crisis and used the secret technique of the great sage temple to forcibly increase the overall strength of the demon race. Namo Amitabha. The Namo Mahatma Samantabhadra Bodhisattva shook his head. Dragon-slaying sage, what you said seems to make sense, but I think that's not the case. Oh. Go ahead, Bodhisattva. The dragon-slaying Arhat raised his long eyebrows and asked. First of all, our Buddhist sect has no direct conflict with the demon race. Although our Buddhist sect saves all living beings, it doesn't exclude the demon race. However, the demon race has always been stubborn and ignorant. They are far less intelligent than us humans. The glory of our Buddha aura has never covered the hidden immortal continent, so why should we be so ambitious and try to illuminate the thousand demons' sacred realm? The Namo Mahatma Samantabhadra Bodhisattva explained. Secondly, the astronomical phenomenon of myriad stars shining in the sun is far from what an ordinary great sage of the demon race can do. This must be related to the seventh great sage, not some secret technique of the demon race. The dragon-slaying Arhat opened his mouth and wanted to refute, but he swallowed his words. He bowed and said, Namo Amitabha, this disciple thanks the Bodhisattva for his teachings. Senior brother Samantabhadra. The Namo Mahatma Samantabhadra Bodhisattva smiled again. The demon realm is the demon realm. My Buddha is in my heart. Why should I care if it's myriad stars shining in the sun? Yes, junior brother Manjushri is right. The Namo Mahatma Samantabhadra Bodhisattva nodded. This seat is concerned. Vaishravana. At this moment, Mahavarakana Buddha spoke. Did you hear anything? Vaishravana hurriedly said, Revered one, this disciple didn't hear it clearly, but vaguely. It should be the ranking of the 7 great sages of the demon race's great sage temple. The current first great sage is no longer the golden-winged roc, but the heaven-defying thunder phoenix. The 5-colored seashell that used to be ranked 4th also fell to the bottom. What puzzles this disciple the most is that the 6 great sages of the demon race who have always been fighting each other to the death have become sworn brothers with the heaven-defying thunder phoenix. Oh. How can this be? The Namo Mahatma Samantabhadra Bodhisattva and the Namo Mahatma Samantabhadra Bodhisattva were stunned. Manjushri. The Namo Mahatma Samantabhadra Bodhisattva didn't seem to want to say more about this matter. Instead, he asked, Where is the sutra seeking bliss now? Revered one. The Namo Mahatma Samantabhadra Bodhisattva hurriedly replied. It's already at the northern part of the Pure Land world, the peak of the South Sea. It won't take long before it crosses the sea and leaves the Pure Land world. Namo Amitabha. We're halfway through the sutra seeking bliss. Don't make any changes. Be careful. This disciple understands. The Namo Mahatma Samantabhadra Bodhisattva smiled bitterly. Ever since Chuanzang took in a demon race named Jiaqi, the path of seeking the sutra seeking bliss has become smooth. Even if there are any changes, this powerful demon race will stifle them. As he spoke, the Namo Mahatma Samantabhadra Bodhisattva looked up at the Namo Mahatma Samantabhadra Bodhisattva. The Namo Mahatma Samantabhadra Bodhisattva nodded at the Namo Mahatma Samantabhadra Bodhisattva with a smile. Vaishravana Heavenly King, Vaishravana Heavenly King. The Namo Mahatma Samantabhadra Bodhisattva said, The situation in the 3 continents is very complicated. The 1,000 demons sacred realm and the 7 sages have become sworn brothers. The sutra seeking bliss is between the Pure Land world and the hidden immortal continent. The star moon palace that the humans and demons are searching for seems to be appearing as well. Keep an eye on the 3 continents. If there are any changes, report it immediately. Chapter 44-56. Yes, disciple understands. Heavenly King Vaishravana and Heavenly King Virka placed their palms together and received the Buddhist edict. Namo Mahasabha, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, stay behind. The rest of you, leave. Said the Dipankara archaic Buddha. Namo Amitabha, Namo Amitabha. As the Buddhas chanted, they gradually faded into the void, leaving only the Buddhist radiances and lotus shadows in the thunderclap temple. After the Buddhist radiances faded, the Namo Mahasabha, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, bowed and asked, World Exalted One, may I know why you asked this disciple to stay behind? Let me ask you, that abstaining from eating. Where did it come from? The Dipankara archaic Buddha opened his eyes and asked calmly, when Xuanzang and his 3 disciples ascended the great snowy mountain, this disciple didn't exist. However, after descending from the great snowy mountain, this demon appeared. At that time, only you and the Namo Maitreya Buddha were on the great snowy mountain. I'm afraid you're the only one who knows the origin of abstaining from eating. The Namo Mahasabha, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, smiled bitterly and said, World Exalted One, this disciple does know about this. However, this matter involves the Namo Maitreya Buddha, World Exalted One. May I ask the Namo Maitreya Buddha, World Exalted One? At this point, the Namo Mahasabha, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, pondered for a while and said, however, from what this disciple knows, this abstaining from eating respects Xuanzang from the bottom of his heart. He's definitely one of the most devout Buddhas in our Buddhism. Similarly, he wouldn't obstruct the sutra praying for nirvana in any way. Sai, Samantabhadra, the sutra praying for nirvana has reached this stage. It really makes one speechless. The Dipankara archaic Buddha sighed and said, if an 8th grade essence force demon is to protect Xuanzang, how could there be any difficulties along the way? This sutra praying for nirvana, wouldn't it become a joke? The Namo Mahasabha, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, naturally knew what the Dipankara archaic Buddha meant. However, he was helpless and could only bow. Exalted One, this disciple, doesn't have any better ideas. Samantabhadra, you may leave. Discuss with Manjushri and see what we can do about this matter. Mahavarakana revered Buddha's eyes did not open as he ordered lightly. Yes, revered one of the world, I understand. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva bowed. The Buddhist light gradually dimmed as he left the Lain temple. Looking at the silent thunderclap temple and the ever-changing Buddha clouds, the Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord said in a low voice, World Lord, previously, the World Lord mentioned that the Namo Maitreya Buddha World Lord is afraid of harming my thunderclap temple. Is this abstinence from eating? Could it be that he wants to get his hands on the fruit of sutra seeking nirvana? Namo Amitabha. The Mahavarakana Buddha opened his eyes. His eyes were as bright as torches, with the sun, moon, and stars being extinguished one after another. He then said to the Namo Dipankara archaic Buddha, Senior apprentice brother, I'm unable to see through this matter, nor am I able to explain it. Does Senior Martial brother feel anything? No. The Namo Dipankara archaic Buddha shook his head as well, I didn't feel anything either. If the Maitreya Buddha comes out of seclusion, I can ask him. The Mahavarakana Buddha World Lord said, however, from Samantabhadra's words, this abstinence is a disciple of my Buddha. He wants to protect Xuanzang out of pure Buddha's heart. It shouldn't affect the sutra seeking nirvana. It shouldn't affect the thunderclap temple either. Only, Senior Martial brother, you have to arrange more tribulations to prevent the Immortal Palace from having any evidence against you. Yes, I understand. The Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord nodded, I'll ask Samantabhadra and Manjushri to pay more attention to this matter. However, Xuanzang and his disciples will soon cross the South Sea and East Sea and return to the buried Immortal continent. The Immortal Palace will be the ones having a headache. Amitabha, the Immortal Palace isn't just having a headache over the sutra seeking nirvana. The Mahavarakana Buddha World Lord smiled and said, they're having a headache over the 1,000 demons' sacred territory. Senior Martial brother, do you still remember the 4 great continents that we descended upon during the Golden Body first cycle? The Dipankara archaic Buddha pondered for a while and asked, are you talking about the demon ancestor of the desolate era upper worlds? Amitabha, that's right. The Mahavarakana Buddha World Lord nodded, star of myriad stars. I remember it very clearly. The demon of myriad demons. The Dipankara archaic Buddha shook his head and sighed, Sigh, Namo Amitba. The demon race is too daring. How long has it been, and how many worlds have we been apart? How did another demon of myriad demons appear in the thousand demons' sacred realm? Wherever the demon of myriad demons goes, a sea of blood will be born, and vengeful souls will never cease to exist. Senior Martial Brother, our Pure Lands will have to increase our vigilance from today onwards. We might have to face the demon of myriad demons after the sutra praying in nirvana. The Mahavairakana Buddha World Lord reminded. The Dipankara Archaic Buddha World Lord nodded and said, "You're right, World Lord. I'll immediately send out a Buddhist decree to the heavenly kings and bandis to increase their vigilance." Amitba. My Buddha is merciful. Knowing that the 3 continents would face a tribulation, he arranged for the 2 bodhisattvas and the Maitreya Buddha World Lord to descend upon our 3 continents. With our Buddhism sect's current strength, even if the demon race has the 7 great sages, we won't be at a disadvantage. The Mahavairakana Buddha World Lord clasped his palms together and said with an indescribable benevolence, "On the other hand, the Immortal Palace should be the strongest. Even if we don't consider the 100 schools of thought's unwillingness to accept the military school, their strength seems to have fallen into a disadvantage. The Immortal Palace had already fallen into a disadvantage before the sutra praying in nirvana. How could they possibly turn the tables around now?" The Dipankara Archaic Buddha World Lord calmly replied. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a strange glint flashed across his eyes, which were as calm as a dry well, and he said, "Also, Supreme of the world, I'm not sure if you noticed, but before the star of 10,000 stars appeared, there seemed to be a movement in the 1,000 demons' sacred realm that surpassed the laws of the 3 continents." Amitba. The Mahavairakana Buddha World Lord's face was also filled with surprise. He nodded and said, "Senior Martial Brother is right. Let alone this disturbance, there have been many disturbances that transcended the laws of the 3 continents recently. It's just that this disturbance came from the past. It swept past the present and rushed straight into the future. If the Maitreya Buddha World Lord was here, he might be able to see something. However, Senior Martial Brother and I might not be able to see through it." World Lord. The Dipankara Archaic Buddha World Lord hesitated for a moment before saying, "Do you think it's related to the 2 from the moon-embracing palace? Or, is it related to that person in the 1,000 demons' sacred realm? If I'm not mistaken, it should be." The Mahavairakana Buddha World Lord nodded and said, "Only the disturbance caused by those 2 could trigger the laws of the heavens and earth, allowing them to avoid our Buddhism mystical arts. Moreover, it said that the Star Moon Palace will appear in the 1,000 demons' sacred realm's Crimson Earth River. It should be caused by those 2, right? However, those 2 have always kept a low profile and never caused any trouble in the 3 continents. Unless something special happened, they wouldn't use their mystical arts. As for that person in the 1,000 demons' sacred realm, I feel that she doesn't have such a high cultivation. Of course, we can't rule out the possibility that she's arrogant and domineering, offending those 2. Anyway, they're all in the 1,000 demons' sacred realm. We don't have to be too concerned. Right now, the most important thing for our Buddhism sect is to complete the sutra praying in extreme bliss." Amitba. My Buddha is merciful. I hope that those 2 will always be merciful. The Dipankara Archaic Buddha World Lord's chanting spread far and wide within the spacious Thunder Sound Temple and didn't stop for a long time. If the Thunder Sound Temple's past Buddha Lord and present Buddha Lord could sense the movement of the stars in the 1,000 demons' sacred realm, how could the Immortal Palace's Immortal Emperor Gochen not know? Within the Immortal Palace's Cloud Ascension Hall, the Immortal Emperor's mountain-like figure remained tall and straight on the huge golden throne. Hundreds of dragon-shaped destinies carried thousands of inscriptions around the golden throne. Although they seemed to be moving freely, they were also circulating in a mysterious trajectory. In front of the Immortal Emperor's eyes, a huge starry sky had just been concealed. The clouds surrounding the starry sky still had dazzling starlight flickering. It seemed like the myriad of stars in the 1,000 demons' sacred realm had also covered the golden throne's radiance. Everyone. As the Immortal Emperor opened his mouth, the destinies around him immediately converged into his indomitable figure. However, his voice was still as deafening as thunder. It was obvious that the immortal emperor's current emotions were stirred up. You all have seen it. You all have also heard the clairaudience report. Do you all have anything to say? As he spoke, two faint golden lights flashed from the heaven and earth crown on the immortal emperor's head. It was obvious that the immortal emperor was looking around. Currently, within the Cloud Ascension Hall, other than Tai Bai Jinxing and the other civil officials, Heavenly King Qin Yu, Heavenly King Fu Yu, and the other generals, there was also the Nangong family's young master, Nangong Jingyin. Hearing the immortal emperor's words, the officials glanced at each other. Just as they were about to speak, Nangong Jingyin uncharacteristically took half a step forward and bowed. Your Majesty, this humble subject has something to say. The immortal emperor was clearly dazed. Tai Bai Jinxing and the others also frowned. After all, Nangong Jingyin wasn't considered an official of the Cloud Ascension Hall. Even if he wanted to speak, he had to wait for Tai Bai Jinxing and Heavenly King Qin Yu to finish. Speak. The immortal emperor spoke. Your Majesty. Nangong Jingyin's square face revealed a trace of understanding. He said, this humble subject has read our Nangong family's books since young. Not only did I study the teachings of the human race, but I also dabbled in the inheritance of the beast race. Whether it was the 13 great saints of the beast race at their peak or the 2 great saints of the beast race at their weakest, this humble subject has some understanding of them. However, this humble subject has never heard of a 7-star great saint appearing in the beast race today. This humble subject remembers that the beast race once had a 2-star great saint who attracted the 7-kill star and knowledge star of the Southern Dipper into his body. This great saint of the beast race was called the heaven-flipping great saint and boasted that he could flip the heavens. That day, the beast race of the 1,000 Beasts Sacred Realm rebelled. Our immortal palace sent Fu Hai Heavenly King, Pingyao Heavenly King, and Ji Peng Heavenly King to suppress them. Our immortal soldiers and generals were unstoppable and fought all the way to the great sage palace of the 1,000 Beasts Sacred Realm. The only 2 great sages of the great sage palace went to stop the 3 heavenly kings. The immortal palace lord Zi Wei Immortal Emperor and the Tai Ching palace lord appeared to face the enemy. The 4 supreme cultivators of our 3 continents fought for 3 days, and that heaven-flipping great saint's power actually surpassed Zi Wei Immortal Emperor. He used the power of 2 stars to injure Zi Wei Immortal Emperor and then joined forces with another great saint to destroy the Tai Ching Palace Lord's main body. Since that battle, our human race knew that the 2-star great saint of the beast race was more than a level stronger than normal great saints. Of course, this battle happened a long time ago, and this humble subject doesn't know if anyone still remembers it. Today, this new great saint of the beast race actually attracted the 7 stars of the Big Dipper. He's probably even stronger than heaven-flipping great saint. Chapter 44-57. You're right. Immortal Emperor Gochen praised, this is a secret of my immortal palace. Even the officials of the immortal palace don't know about it. It's rare for your Nangong family to have such a clear record. Your Majesty. Nangong Jingyin's expression changed slightly, and she hastily bowed. I know that this is a secret, but I don't dare to not report it. The rise of the demon race is a nightmare for our human race. I would rather report it than be punished by your Majesty. Emicham, I'm not that muddle-headed. Immortal Emperor Gochen sneered, speak your mind. Yes, your Majesty. Nangong Jingyin was neither arrogant nor rash as she continued, however, I still have a huge doubt. I wonder if your Majesty can clear it up for me. Speak. Immortal Emperor Gochen ordered. I've just said that I'm willing to make any sacrifice for the prosperity of our human race. Thus, I usually pay attention to the movements of the 1,000 Demon Sacred Realm and the extreme world. I have some understanding of the 6 great sages of the 1,000 Demon Sacred Realm. Nangong Jingyin said respectfully, however, I've never heard of this heaven-defying lightning phoenix's name. I also didn't know that the phoenix race, which has long been declining in the 1,000 Demon Sacred Realm, actually had such a great sage. Can your majesty please tell me which demon realm this heaven-defying lightning phoenix came from? Needless to say, Nangong Jingyin was trying to flatter Immortal Emperor Go-Chen. Unexpectedly, Immortal Emperor Go-Chen faintly replied, "What you know, I also know. What you don't know, I also don't know. I also want to ask the 4 great clans. Who can tell me where this 7-star heaven-defying lightning phoenix that suddenly appeared, came from?" Nangong Jingyin took in a cold breath and hastily bowed, "I know my mistake. Please punish me, your majesty." "What mistake did you make? If you're guilty, then wouldn't I be even more guilty?" Immortal Emperor Go-Chen was clearly a bit angry as he said coldly. Just like what Virokana revered said, the appearance of the heaven-defying lightning phoenix was a huge blow to the Confucian cultivators of the hidden immortal continent. I. Nangong Jingyin's forehead were already covered in cold sweat. The feeling of flattering the Emperor Go-Chen was truly uncomfortable. Young Master Nangong. Taibai Jinxing, who was beside him, said, "When we entered the hall, this old man heard you say that you had come to the Hall of Fragrance to meet the East Sea Empress. It's getting late now. Aren't you going to greet her?" Nangong Jingyin let out a sigh of relief and hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, this lowly subject doesn't know much about the court and was only speaking off the cuff. Please forgive this lowly subject's crime on account that this lowly subject is wholeheartedly thinking for the human race. I came to the Lingyun Palace to report to His Majesty and pay my respects to the Celestial Empress in the Hall of Fragrance. Go." Immortal Emperor Go-Chen didn't say much and ordered, "Thank you, your Majesty." Nangong Jingyin got up and turned to look at Taibai Jinxing. Her eyes were filled with gratitude as she left in a hurry. Before Nangong Jingyin could leave, Fuyue Heavenly King sneered. "A brat dares to show off in front of me? Geezer Taibai, you are making things up. I want to see how this brat is going to deal with this." Taibai Jinxing innocently waved his horsetail whisk and replied, "I don't dare to make things up in front of His Majesty. He came to pay respects to the Celestial Empress." Damn it, why is he paying respects to the Celestial Empress for no reason? Fuyue Heavenly King snorted. Truly a weasel paying respects to the chicken. Qing Yu quickly interrupted Fuyue Heavenly King and said to Immortal Emperor Go-Chen, "This lowly subject has 3 questions. Your Majesty, please tell Heaven's secret hall to quickly investigate." "Speak." Although Immortal Emperor Go-Chen's face couldn't be seen clearly, this one word contained a myriad of thunderbolts. He was probably pissed off by Fuyue Heavenly King. Firstly, the origin of this heaven-defying lightning phoenix. Secondly, what exactly was that constellation transit just now? Thirdly, why did the Great Sage Hall's 5-colored sea god shell suddenly drop from the 4th Great Sage to the 7th Great Sage? Qing Yu explained in detail. As long as Heaven's secret hall can investigate these 3 matters, the situation in the 1,000 Demon Sacred Realm will be clear. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen nodded and said, "Summon Heaven's secret hall's Xia Xian. This lowly subject is here." A voice came from outside the Overcloud Palace. Then, the Heavenly Secret Hall's Palace Master Xia Xian appeared in front of everyone. "Did you hear what Heavenly King Qin Yu said?" Immortal Emperor Go-Chen went straight to the point. Xia Xian bowed and said, "This lowly subject knows. This lowly subject has already sent elite disciples to the 1,000 Demon Sacred Realm. They will return in a few days." Immortal Emperor Go-Chen was very satisfied and asked, "What is the matter? Why are you waiting outside the palace?" "Your Majesty, this lowly subject has an important matter to report," Xia Xian said in a low voice. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen looked around and said, "Can everyone hear me?" Xia Xian thought for a bit and nodded. "Yes." "Okay, speak." Immortal Emperor Go-Chen ordered. "Your Majesty, this lowly subject has 3 important matters to report. First, there are several 100,000 high-level cultivators from the Tao Gate inside the 1,000 Demon Sacred Realm that are drawing upon the worldly origin energy. Before Xia Xian could finish, Heavenly King Qinyu interrupted him in shock and shouted, How is this possible? Palace Master Xia, how many 100,000 are you talking about? Your so-called high-level cultivator, what kind of cultivator is he? Heavenly King Qinyu. Although Xia Xian was interrupted, he was not angry at all and continued to answer slowly, it might be between 150,000 and 250,000. As for their realm, it should be above the nascent soul realm or even below the body integration realm. This is the funniest thing in the world. Heavenly King Qinyu laughed and waved his hand. There aren't that many Dao Gate cultivators in the entire hidden immortal continent. This is impossible. Unfortunately, Xia Xian ignored Heavenly King Qinyu and continued to report, Second, before the stars illuminated the sun, a large-scale worldly law appeared in the Thousand Demons sacred realm. This law far surpasses the inscription chains of my immortal palace. It can't be. Tai Bai Jinxing was even more shocked than Heavenly King Qinyu. Far surpasses the inscription chains of my immortal palace. Then it surpasses the worldly law of the 3 continents? How is this possible? Third, at the Thousand Demons sacred realm's Chitty River, there was an abnormal spatial ripple. The Xingyue palace that Xingyue is looking for should have appeared there. Xia Xian still ignored Tai Bai Jinxing and finished the last matter. After Xia Xian finished speaking, the entire Lingyun palace was silent. Tai Bai Jinxing and Heavenly King Qinyu looked at each other. They knew that Xia Xian of the Heaven's secret palace was a man of his word. He replaced Immortal Emperor Go Chen to control the 3 continents. He definitely wouldn't exaggerate things like Nangong Jingyin. What he said was definitely the truth. After a while, Immortal Emperor Go Chen said, Xia Xian. Hearing Immortal Emperor Go Chen directly call his name, Xia Xian's expression turned serious. He bowed and said, I'm here. From today onwards, you will temporarily be in charge of the Hall of Enlightenment. Increase the intensity of monitoring the Thousand Demons sacred realm and the Pure Land world. You must investigate the Great Sage Palace's heaven-defying Lightning Phoenix and Thunder Temple's Namo Maitreya Buddha's foundation. Immortal Emperor Go Chen ordered, if there is any movement, immediately report to me. Yes, I understand. Xia Xian nodded. I'll take my leave. Go. Immortal Emperor Go Chen ordered. Just as Xia Xian turned around, Immortal Emperor Go Chen seemed to have thought of something and suddenly asked, Oh right, where is the sutra seeking extreme bliss? Xia Xian was stunned. He could only stop and report, Your Majesty, according to what I know, Chunzong and his group have already reached the northern part of the Pure Land world. They're about to cross the Eastern Sea. Oh, that's pretty fast. Immortal Emperor Go Chen nodded. Of course it's pretty fast. Xia Xian smiled and said, Chunzong took in a demon around the 8th level essence force. How many Daoist cultivators in this world are his match? What's the origin of this chastity ring? You still haven't found it? Immortal Emperor Go Chen asked unhappily. Xia Xian hesitated for a bit and whispered, This matter belongs to the Hall of Enlightenment. Xia Xian stopped here and lowered his head, I understand. I'll send more people to let Your Majesty know. Who else wants to interfere with the Sutra seeking extreme bliss? Why don't we just look for Jinhan and ask her? Tai Bai Jinxing frowned and asked in a low voice. That's right. Immortal Emperor Go Chen nodded, send someone secretly to ask. Yes. Xia Xian left after saying that. Immortal Emperor Go Chen looked at Tai Bai Jinxing and said, Minister, since the sutra seeking extreme bliss is at Burial Immortal Continent, the responsibility is on us Confucian cultivators. If you have time, go take a look and make sure nothing goes wrong. Yes, I understand. Tai Bai Jinxing nodded without hesitation, I'll go to the Eastern Sea to deal with the heavenly protector of the Buddhist sect. Immortal Emperor Go Chen nodded and looked at Heavenly King Qinyu. Heavenly King Qinyu, the 7 great saints of the demon race have sworn brotherhood. Regardless of whether it's just a formality, it's undeniable that the unity of the great saints of the Thousand Demons sacred realm is unprecedented. If nothing goes wrong, the demon race will stabilize and they'll think of making a move. Our Thousand Demons sacred realm will be the first to be affected. Regardless of whether the hundreds of thousands of Daoist cultivators are primordial chaos ancestors' subordinates, our immortal palace must be prepared for war. Yes, I understand. Heavenly King Qin Yu cupped his fists and said, I'll prepare the troops after the court session ends. Your Majesty. Tai Bai Jingxing hesitated for a moment as if he was thinking. Then, Tai Bai Jingxing said, since perfected cultivator Qin Yuan was mysteriously killed, the position of general of the Sun Palace has been vacant. Our immortal palace needs a general who can fight in battles. What do you have in mind, Your Majesty? Sigh, perfected cultivator Qin Yuan's disappearance is strange. I can't find him even with the supreme heavenly mirror. Immortal Emperor Gochen sighed, I haven't thought about the position of general of the Sun Palace. Oh, since my beloved subject mentioned this, does my beloved subject have any suggestions? Chapter 44-58. Your Majesty, there's something you don't know. Tai Bai Jingxing bowed and said, Sun Palace's general, Sun Jian, was extremely loyal but not strong enough. First, he had an affair with a Daoist remnant, then he went missing while guarding Black Ruins Mountain. I feel that the position of Sun Palace's general must be strong enough to intimidate the Daoists and conquer the world. I've been visiting the famous mountains and rivers a while ago and met a remnant of my school of the military. I saw a void refinement and heavenly fusion general, so I've brought him to the Immortal Palace for Your Majesty to make a decision. A void refinement and heavenly fusion martial saint? Heavenly King Fuyue couldn't help but shout, how is that possible? There's a martial saint in this world that I don't know about? Heavenly King Qin Yu's expression also turned ugly. He stared at Tai Bai Jingxing and said, Old man Tai Bai, the position of Sun Palace's general requires absolute loyalty. Where did you find a martial saint? How dare you make him the Sun Palace's general? This person is from one of my school of the military. His name is Sun Chou. Tai Bai Jingxing smiled and said, I can vouch for Sun Chou's loyalty. Of course, whether or not he can become the Sun Palace's general depends on Your Majesty's decision. Summon. Immortal Emperor Gaochen didn't say much and only ordered. Not long after, a burly general holding a three-pointed, double-edged sword strode up to the Lingyun Palace. This general was wearing a golden chainmail, and the two thick eyebrows on his face that were exposed outside of the armor contained a murderous aura. His round eyes flashed with murderous intent. Above the armor, rays of righteous aura shuttled like sharp swords. Before the general even got close, Heavenly King Fuyue felt his body turn cold. He couldn't help but feel like he was being stared at by a ferocious beast. Three-pointed, double-edged sword? Heavenly King Qin Yu saw the weapon in the general's hand and couldn't help but exclaim, Isn't that Sun Jian's weapon? Sun Chou greets the immortal emperor. The general walked to the front of the palace and bowed. Rise. Immortal Emperor Gochen said indifferently. He waved his hand and a ray of light as bright as the sun flew out from his hand, illuminating the entire overcloud palace. Then, another ray of light shot out and covered Sun Chou. Rumble. A series of thunderbolts came out from the light pillar. Then, the entire Lingyun Palace was engulfed in darkness except for the light pillar. Looking into the light pillar, Sun Chou's figure gradually became transparent. Then, his figure fluttered like a butterfly. Strings of illusory images were elongated, and within each of these illusory images, there were thousands of mountains, rivers, and stories of people. After half a cup of tea's time, the light gradually dimmed. Light also seeped out from the darkness of the Lingyun Hall. By the time the light pillar completely disappeared, Sun Chou's body had once again returned to its original state. Tai Bai Jingxing, Heavenly King Qin Yu, Heavenly King Fu Yu, and the others all had the ability to clear their eyes. Even though Sun Chou's silhouette appeared in the supreme heavenly mirror like a flash of light, and the scenes that each silhouette depicted flashed by, everything that Sun Cho had experienced in this life, was still vivid in their minds. Tai Bai Jinxing smiled and bowed. "Congratulations, Your Majesty. This is Your Majesty's grace to the world, and the people of the world love Your Majesty. The heavens have bestowed such a blessing to Your Majesty. With such a fierce general, our immortal palace will not be at a disadvantage against the Thunder Temple and the Great Sage Hall." Ha! Ha! Immortal Emperor Go Chen was clearly happy. He actually laughed twice. Then, he looked at Heavenly King Qin Yu and Heavenly King Fu Yu and asked, "What do you two think?" "Your Majesty." Heavenly King Qin Yu bowed and said, "Sun Cho has always been innocent. He is a descendant of the school of the military. Moreover, he was able to cultivate to the martial saint realm in the lower realm. The hardships he had to go through are not something an ordinary person can endure. Such a person with a strong mind is the pillar of the school of the military. I feel that if there is no problem with his loyalty, he is more than qualified to be the great general of the Sun Palace." "Your Majesty." Heavenly King Fu Yu frowned and said, "I want to see Sun Chao's three-pointed double-edged saber." Ha! Immortal Emperor Go Chen laughed and said, "Not just you, even I am very curious. There are many weapons in the world, and Sun Jian is probably the most famous one to use the three-pointed double-edged saber. However, I did not expect that after Sun Jian, Sun Cho would also use the three-pointed double-edged saber as a weapon. Could it be that this three-pointed double-edged saber was left behind by Sun Jian?" "Your Majesty." Sun Cho said respectfully, "This weapon has been used by me since I was young. It is different from the three-pointed double-edged saber in perfected cultivator Qin Yuan's hands." "Sun Cho, show me your weapon." Heavenly King Fu Yu raised his hand and said, "Sorry." Unexpectedly, Sun Cho refused. "This is the weapon of this commoner. I can't let others control it as they wish. Damn it." Heavenly King Fu Yu shouted, "I am the Heavenly King of the Immortal Palace. Even if you are the great general of the Sun Palace, you are still my subordinate. My words are military orders. How dare you not listen?" "So what if I don't listen?" Sun Cho sneered and said, "A real man stands on his own in the world. There are things that he should do and things that he should not do. If he can't even grasp a few principles, how can he be loyal? Then go to hell." Heavenly King Fu Yu roared angrily, and his voice shook the Lingyun Palace. The space around Sun Cho cracked inch by inch, and pillars of Aoran Qi shot toward Sun Cho like flying swords. At the same time, Heavenly King Fu Yu raised his right hand, and a curved saber that looked like a silver moon strangely appeared from his waist. Everyone felt their vision blur, and the moonlight on the curved saber flashed past space and landed behind Sun Chao's neck. The cold moonlight was hidden in the lightning. In an instant, Sun Chao's eyes narrowed into needles. He muttered, "Heavenly King of the Immortal Palace, is nothing more than this." Although his voice was low, it contained grief and anger. The moment the words came out, they also condensed into 8 balls of Aoran Qi. Boom boom boom. They all burst in front of Sun Chao's eyes. The balls of Aoran Qi first shattered the space around Sun Cho, and the thin cracks in space were like spider webs that affected the space that Heavenly King Fu Yu shattered. When the two shattered spaces collided, the space around Sun Cho collapsed. However, because Sun Cho had already broken the space close to his body in advance, the space about a foot to the left of him was stable. Even Heavenly King Fu Yu's curved saber that was like the autumn moon trembled slightly in the collapse of space, like ripples in water. Just as the ripples appeared, clang. The three-pointed, double-edged saber in Sun Chao's hand moved, piercing into the gap between the ripples. As the metal clanged, the autumn moon was like the moon in the water that was shattered. The three-pointed, double-edged saber was like a flood dragon that came out of the water, piercing into the void and stabbing towards Heavenly King Fu Yu's heart. Seeing the silver light in the void, the breastplate at his heart made peng 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 sounds, and the hundreds of inscriptions on it were already shattered. How could Heavenly King Fu Yu not know that the wind from the three-pointed, double-edged saber had already struck? A solemn expression appeared on his face as he quickly retreated. A golden hammer the size of a fist appeared in his left hand. Whoosh! The sound of wind whistling could be heard. Pooh! Two inexplicable sounds could be heard. In front of Heavenly King Fu Yue, the light of the three-pointed, double-edged blade flashed and disappeared. Heavenly King Fu Yu's body also stiffened. He lowered his head to look at the pendant on his waist. There were already cracks on it. When Heavenly King Fu Yu raised his head, Sun Cho was already standing there with the three-pointed, double-edged saber in his hand. His face was neither arrogant nor humble, as calm as a virgin. General Sun. Heavenly King Fu Yu smiled bitterly. I only wanted to see if your three-pointed, double-edged saber was the same as Sun Jian's. You don't have to put me on the spot like this, do you? My apologies. Sun Cho said indifferently, this is my first time in the Immortal Palace, so I do not know the etiquette. Please forgive me, Heavenly King. Forget it, forget it. Heavenly King Fu Yu waved his hand and said self-deprecatingly, a great person does not hold a grudge against a lowly person. If you say so, what else can I say? My dear subject. Immortal Emperor Gaochen smiled and asked, compared to the previous Sun Jian, who is stronger? Is this three-pointed, double-edged saber the same as Sun Jian's? Your Majesty. Heavenly King Fu Yu smiled bitterly, do I even need to say this? The previous Sun Jian's strength compared to the current Sun Cho is not even worthy of carrying his shoes. That three-pointed, double-edged saber compared to this one, is a fire rod. What nonsense are you talking about? Heavenly King Qin Yu scolded, Sun Jian's three-pointed, double-edged saber was forged by a great artificer of the Immortal Palace. How can it be a fire rod? I am just making an analogy. Heavenly King Fu Yu was not angry and smiled, with this three-pointed, double-edged saber, Sun Cho is like a tiger that has grown wings. His strength has increased by 30%. No wonder this guy is unwilling to show his weapon to others. Heavenly King Qin Yu smiled and said, Your Majesty, this Sun Cho is much stronger than the previous true monarch Qin Yuan. Moreover, his character is somewhat similar to true monarch Qin Yuan. If there is no problem in terms of loyalty, I feel that there is no problem with him becoming the Sun Palace's great general. Yes, I think so too. Immortal Emperor Gaochen nodded and said, however, I am still a bit worried. Sun Cho is strong, but the Sun Palace's great general needs to lead troops. I am afraid that Sun Cho does not have any experience in this area. If that is the case, then there is even less need for your Majesty to worry. Heavenly King Qin Yu replied, with the situation in the Thousand Beasts Sacred Realm, who knows when they will start a war with our hidden immortal continent. The Sun Palace's great general will have plenty of opportunities to lead troops. There is no need to wait until then. Heavenly King Fu Yu said with a smile, I remember that the Hall of Enlightenment sent a report saying that there are Taoism remnants running rampant in the soaring Dragon Mountain range in the lower realm. The Lunar Temple has already dispatched troops to deal with them. If the Sun Palace's great general is willing, you can go there. What? The Lunar Temple dispatched troops to deal with the soaring Dragon Mountain range? Immortal Emperor Gaochen was stunned. When did this happen? Your Majesty. Tai Bai Jinxing said, it happened the day before yesterday. Why didn't I know? Why didn't they send a report? Immortal Emperor Gaochen asked. Chapter 44-59. Tai Bai Jinxing was taken aback by Immortal Emperor Go Chen's rebuke. He smiled wryly and said, Your Majesty, you have 1,000 things to attend to every day and control the foundation of our human race for millions of years. There are too many things that require your Majesty's attention, so there is no need to report such a trivial matter. After receiving the report from the Hall of Enlightenment, the Lunar Temple has already sent out their troops. After they send out their troops, this lowly official has already approved the reports that they sent out. Ha! Immortal Emperor Gochen chuckled and said, I'm also confused by the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. Tai-Bai Jinxing. Yes, Your Majesty. Tai-Bai Jinxing said anxiously. Write a decree for Sun Cho to temporarily assume the position of Sun Palace's great general. Announce it to the world when he has military merits. Immortal Emperor Go Chen ordered. I understand. Tai-Bai Jinxing bowed and said. Sun Cho hurriedly bowed and said, Thank you, Your Majesty. Okay, General Sun, wait at the side. I still have some things to ask you about the military family's descendants after the discussion. Immortal Emperor Go Chen ordered. I understand. Sun Cho stood up and stood beside everyone. Then, Immortal Emperor Go Chen discussed the Immortal Palace and the hidden Immortal Continent with Tai-Bai Jinxing and the others. However, Sun Cho was obviously absent-minded, as if he had something important on his mind. After the discussion, everyone dispersed. Immortal Emperor Go Chen looked at Sun Cho, who was frowning, and raised his hand. Boom! The entire heavenly palace surged and changed again. A study-like palace appeared. At this moment, Immortal Emperor Go Chen's huge body had returned to normal. The golden brilliance faded away, revealing his original appearance. Oh! Sun Jian. Immortal Emperor Go Chen stood up from his golden chair and walked to Sun Cho. He said curiously, You look like you have something on your mind? Sun Cho was obviously Sun Jian, who had disguised himself. Sun Jian, who was proficient in the 9 transformations, could easily disguise himself as Sun Cho. Under Immortal Emperor Go Chen's disguise, how could the illusion realm in the Supreme Heavenly Mirror be real? Sigh, Your Majesty. Sun Jian sighed and said, When I returned to the Immortal Palace, the first thing I told Your Majesty was that you don't have to worry about the Taoism cultivators for now. Especially that place called the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range. No matter what happens, Your Majesty must wait and see. After all, Xiaohua of the Tao sect. At this point, Sun Jian hesitated. This Xiaohua. Immortal Emperor Go Chen's brows furrowed as he asked, Even if it's as you say, he's only a human Grand Ascension stage being. Even if he founded the Fortune Gate, how can it compare to the Immortal Palace? Your Majesty. Sun Tian said with a wry smile, I've said what I can say. Your Majesty, please don't embarrass me for what I can't say. I'm loyal to Your Majesty and the Immortal Palace. Similarly, I have to make some compromises for some things without affecting Your Majesty's safety. Yes, I understand. Immortal Emperor Go Chen nodded. A loyal person with his own principles is a true loyal person. However, the matter of the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range. I truly didn't know about it. It was my slip of the tongue, and I also made you break your promise. Sigh. Sun Jian sighed. Since they've already sent out their troops, it's no longer appropriate for me to go out and stop them. Even His Majesty could not change his orders. I can only wait for an opportunity in the future to explain to Xiaohua. I hope he can understand. If it's possible. Immortal Emperor Go Chen smiled, You should also express my goodwill. Xiaohua was able to save you, and he is indeed a benevolent person. You didn't get to know him in vain. Your Majesty is wrong. Sun Tian corrected, A cultivator like Xiaohua still needs Your Majesty to personally recruit him. If I could recruit him, why would I wait until now? Oh, right. Immortal Emperor Go Chen smiled when he heard Sun Jian describe Xiaohua as a rare person. He felt that Sun Jian was making a mountain out of a molehill, so he changed the topic and asked, What's the progress on Sun Hao's matter? Sun Jian and Immortal Emperor Go Chen's thoughts were completely opposite. He felt that Immortal Emperor Go Chen was too dismissive. However, he couldn't say anything more to Immortal Emperor Go Chen, so he could only reply, Your Majesty, there are some clues. However, these clues don't seem to be much. It seems like there are traces of the gray serpent worm thread. However, when I really investigated it, there were actually too many clues. I simply couldn't find the source. There are only a few literary stars in the Immortal Palace. Immortal Emperor Go Chen's face became gloomy. Why can't you find it? Your Majesty. Sun Jian smiled bitterly. However, all the literary stars are my seniors. Moreover, I can't expose my whereabouts, so naturally, it's not easy to find. Also, who knows if the one who occupied Sun Hao's body was a literary star in the Immortal Palace or a literary star in the hidden Immortal Continent. Maybe it's a ploy by some aristocratic family to divert the disaster. Humph, there are only a few people who can covet my position. Immortal Emperor Gochen snorted and said, actually, even if you don't say it, I can guess who it is. Unfortunately, that Sun Hao is too cunning. I only borrowed the power of the 3 provinces of thunder. The moment I saw him, he immediately realized it and didn't allow me to attack. He immediately self-destructed. He didn't give me a chance at all. Your Majesty. Sun Jian reminded, you must be careful. Sun Hao knows your Majesty's methods very well. His self-destruction was completely aimed at your Majesty's magic power. Even with the power of the Supreme Heavenly Mirror and your Majesty's method of controlling the hidden Immortal Continent, you still couldn't find his secret. It shows how well your Majesty's enemy knows your Majesty. Alas, you're absolutely right. Immortal Emperor Go Chen sighed and said, the people who know themselves the best are not those who love themselves, but those who hate themselves. This principle is unbreakable throughout the ages. It's a pity that I don't have much time left. Sun Jian said regretfully, perhaps it won't be long before that person discovers my secret. At that time, I won't be able to investigate it anymore. Immortal Emperor Go Chen was stunned and asked curiously, Sun Jian, what do you mean? Didn't I let you temporarily take over the position of the Sun Palace's great general to give you some leeway to create a false impression for that person? Sun Jian smiled and looked at Immortal Emperor Go Chen, saying, Your Majesty, do you think that with the Maitreya Buddha, the Thunder Temple's strength will surpass my Immortal Palace? With the addition of a 7 stars Great Saint, the Great Sage Temple's strength will surpass my Immortal Palace? If it was someone else, Immortal Emperor Go Chen wouldn't reveal his true feelings. However, facing Sun Jian, he showed a bitter expression and replied, yes, if the demon race and the Buddhist sect had one more pure 9th level essence force expert, I wouldn't be so distressed. However, the Maitreya Buddha of the Thunder Temple is one of the 3 great Buddha lords. The heaven-defying Thunder Phoenix of the Great Sage Temple is a 7 stars Great Saint. Their influence is incomparable to that of an ordinary 9th level essence force. At this point, Immortal Emperor Go Chen thought of something and smiled, of course, I didn't expect that not only would you return safely, but you would also miraculously cultivate to the Wisdom Saint realm. Although you didn't want to reveal the secret to me, I am very happy that I have you, perfected Lord Qin Yuan, who is comparable to the Thunder Temple's Maitreya Buddha of the Thunder Temple. Your Majesty's words are somewhat insincere. Sun Jian's strength had improved by leaps and bounds, so he didn't hesitate to speak frankly in front of Immortal Emperor Go Chen. Hence, he spoke with a smile. Immortal Emperor Go Chen smiled and was about to say something else when Sun Jian continued, however, I still have to congratulate your Majesty. Oh? Where did the congratulations come from? Immortal Emperor Go Chen was stunned. Suddenly, a golden light rose around him and the golden throne below him let out a loud rumble. The entire Ling Yun Palace rapidly collapsed. Immortal Emperor Go Chen seemed to have understood something. However, Sun Jian didn't continue speaking and only looked at Immortal Emperor Go Chen with a smile on his face. Sun Jian. You're saying that? No, the human Confucian cultivators also have such a person? Immortal Emperor Go Chen seemed to have an epiphany and cried out involuntarily. Yes. How could I be confused? If you want to cultivate to the Wisdom Saint realm, you must have someone to guide you. Moreover, your 3-pointed double-edged saber has been refined to such an extent. You must have an expert behind you. At this point, Immortal Emperor Go Chen asked tentatively, who is your master? Can he come to the Immortal Palace? Your Majesty. Sun Jian smiled and said, I don't know if this expert will come or not. However, I know that your majesty must invite him. He is more important to the Immortal Palace than the Maitreya Buddha of the world to the Thunder Temple. Yes, of course, I must invite him. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen frowned again because he knew very well what the Maitreya Buddha of the world meant to the Thunder Temple. He didn't know who else could be so important to the Immortal Palace. Sun Jian was waiting for this moment. He smiled and asked, Your Majesty, you must know the true scholar, right? Of course. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen said disapprovingly, wasn't he created by Sun Yu and Xian? At this point, Immortal Emperor Go-Chen stood there in a daze. He was in disbelief and even stuttered. He no longer had the composure of an immortal emperor and asked, You mean, what Zhenru wanted to do, that master has already done it? Sun Jian didn't answer. He raised his hand and slapped the top of his head. Boom! 5-colored true qi gushed out and turned into 5-colored clouds above his head. Each cloud was like a lively flame. A kind of vitality seeped out from the clouds. It was far beyond the 5-colored true qi of ordinary Confucian cultivators. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen couldn't sit still anymore. Whoosh! He flew up and landed on top of Sun Jian's head. His eyes flashed with a golden color. Golden eyes. Only the Sun family of the Immortal Palace could cultivate the clear eyes technique. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen looked for a while and calmed down a little. He slowly flew back to his golden seat and stared at Sun Jian. Did Xian's Tian Xian fall into his hands? Princess Xian? Sun Jian was stunned and shook his head. I don't know. Chapter 4460. Only by understanding the heaven's heart can one cultivate the true 5 Qis unification. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen says, if you didn't get Xian's half of the heaven's heart, how would you know the cultivation method of the 5 Qis unification? I don't know how that senior got the 5 Qis unification. Sun Jian answers, however, even if he got Princess Xian's half of the heaven's heart, he still has the other 4 half of the heaven's heart. There are only 4 half of the heaven's heart in this world. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen says, the other half is in the heavenly court. Oh, so that's how it is. Then I'm ignorant. Sun Jian nods. Only the previous masters of the Immortal Palace know about this. It's normal that you don't know. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen laughs. Seeing Immortal Emperor Go-Chen laugh, Sun Jian understands and answers, I'll explain this to that senior. That's what you said, it has nothing to do with me. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen's eyes flash with fervor and asks, what I'm concerned about is this 5 Qis unification. I've already asked that senior before returning to the Immortal Palace. Sun Jian says. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen looks at Sun Jian's mouth and really wants to take the words out of his mouth. However, he already has a premonition in his heart. After all, Sun Jian has already displayed the 5 Qis unification in front of him. Sun Jian says word by word, that senior agreed for me to return the 5 Qis unification to the Confucian cultivator. After all, this 5 Qis unification was originally a lost cultivation method of the Confucian cultivator. Good. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen claps his hands and laughs. With the 5 Qis unification, why would I fear the demon race? However, Sun Jian says, I feel that cultivation methods are dead, but people are alive. Although this senior doesn't care about fame and fortune, the ancients are still willing to spend 1,000 gold coins to buy horse bones. Your Majesty, why can't you invite this senior to my Immortal Palace? Of course. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen makes up his mind and says, what's this senior's name and where is he now? I'll go down to the lower realm to search. This. Sun Jian hesitates again. Actually, he wants to recommend Xiao Hua. However, he also understood that Xiao Hua believed that he was a Taoist cultivator and that it was impossible for him to come to the Immortal Palace. At this time, he revealed the 5 Qis unification's cultivation method because he heard the news about the heaven-defying Thunder Phoenix and the Maitreya Buddha. On the 3 mainlands, other than Xiao Hua and the Fortune Gate's disciples, no one knew more about the heaven-defying lightning phoenix and Maitreya Buddha than him. Since Feng Wu and Subhuti could go to the Great Holy Hall and Lightning Tune Temple, why couldn't Wen Chu come to the Immortal Palace? Therefore, Sun Wu hesitated for a moment before he smiled and said, "This senior's name is Wen Chu." Naturally, he was already a literary star. As for where he went, I don't know. However, your majesty should know that the day this senior appears will be the day I reveal myself. I hope to stall for as long as possible. Wenxiu. Good name. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen clapped his hands and laughed. My Immortal Palace's Wenxiu Palace does not have a master yet. What do you think if I invite him to be the master of the Wenxiu Palace? Sun Wu smiled and said, Your Majesty is right. Although the Wenxiu Palace is not comparable to the Pure Jade Palace, High Purity Palace, and Grand Purity Palace, the name of the Wenxiu Palace is too special. Even the masters of the three pure palaces do not dare to call themselves Wen Chu. This senior can pass down our orthodox 5 cheese unifications cultivation method. He is indeed worthy of being the master of the Wenxiu Palace. Not only that. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen said excitedly, since Wen Chu can disclose the 5 cheese unifications cultivation method to the Immortal Palace, he is qualified to be the master of our Confucian cultivators. I want to give him the title of Immortal Master and announce it to the entire hidden Immortal continent. Your Majesty is wise. Sun Jian prostrated himself in admiration. In just a short moment, Immortal Emperor Go-Chen had tied Wen Chu to the chariot of Immortal Palace. Wen Chu's title as an Immortal Master wouldn't be any weaker than the Maitreya Buddha of the Thunderclap Temple and the heaven-defying Lightning Phoenix of the Great Sacred Hall. The entire hidden Immortal continent would be shaken. Motherfucker. At this time, Sun Jian was shocked again. Daoist Shao is now the Dragon Master of the Dragon Clan. Wen Chu is now the Immortal Master of our Confucian cultivators. Bodhi has become the Buddha Maitreya Buddha, and Feng Wu has become the first great saint of the Demon Clan. This Fortune Gate is now the place where all things flow into one place. The Fortune Gate and the Fortune Dao Palace are truly places of fortune awe. With the title of Immortal Master, the 5 cheese unifications cultivation method, and the help of the Scholar Palace's master, Immortal Emperor Go-Chen raised his head and looked into the distance. He said meaningfully, not to mention the 4 great clans, even the 100 schools of thought, will have to listen to the orders of my school of the military. Sun Jian, you are truly my lucky general. Sweat. Seeing Immortal Emperor Go-Chen's plan, Sun Jian's face was covered in sweat. Although he was a famous commander and was unparalleled in judging the situation on the battlefield, when it came to power struggles, how could he see as far as Immortal Emperor Go-Chen? He only wanted to gain some benefits for Xiao Hua, but he didn't expect Immortal Emperor Go-Chen to want even more. As the saying goes, there is no such thing as a free lunch in the sky. Whether it was Immortal Master or the Scholar Palace's master, they were not for nothing. At this moment, Sun Jian was almost regretting his decision. He was afraid that Xiao Hua and Wen Chu wouldn't agree. However, before he could say anything, Immortal Emperor Go-Chen suddenly stopped and slapped the golden throne. A palm-sized golden leaf flew out. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen looked at it and said angrily, Your hair is long but your knowledge is short. How can you do this at a time like this? With that, Immortal Emperor Go-Chen crushed the golden leaf and said, Sun Jian, I will tell Tai Bai Jinxing to write a decree. Do you want to announce it to the world first? Or do you want to wait until you find that senior? I feel that it is better to inform that senior first. Sun Jian hastily replied. Unfortunately, Sun Jian still underestimated Immortal Emperor Go-Chen's arbitrariness. He simply asked Sun Jian and didn't expect Sun Jian to answer. Even if Sun Jian answered, it would be in vain. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen shook his head and said, I feel that it is better to announce it to the world first. What do you think? Why? Sun Jian knew it was inappropriate, but he still asked. First, our Confucian cultivators are at a disadvantage right now. The demon race and the Buddhist sect both have leaders. If we don't have an immortal master, our morale will be low and we will be at a disadvantage. Second, the sutra seeking extreme bliss is a compromise between the immortal palace and the Buddhist sect. The 4 great clans are already pressuring me. If the 4 great clans take this opportunity to show off, I will be unable to make ends meet. It is better to use this to attract the attention of the 4 great clans. Third, if you ask and when Shu doesn't come, won't I be happy for nothing? But, what if your majesty issues the decree and when Shu still doesn't come? Sun Jian was worried. What is done cannot be undone. Immortal Emperor Gochen smiled and said, the 5 energies origin method. Can't you teach it? I only need this gimmick. Whether when Shu enters the literary palace or not, it doesn't matter. Immortal Emperor Gochen's golden chair shook again and another golden leaf flew out. Immortal Emperor Gochen reached out and caught it. He casually looked at it and crushed it. Then, he looked at Sun Jian and said, just now, the divination hall sent a message. In their surveillance, not only did they discover the stars in the 1,000 demons sacred realm, but they also found a huge amount of heaven and earth origin energy flowing in the 1,000 demons sacred realm. The divination hall deduced that there are hundreds of thousands of high-level cultivators channeling their magic power there. Sun Jian, I remember that the Grand Mist ancestor didn't have that many disciples under him. Immortal Emperor Gochen's words seemed casual, and he only mentioned the Grand Mist ancestor. However, Sun Jian knew that Immortal Emperor Gochen had an ulterior motive. He was probing Xiao Hua's strength. Sun Jian was a bit conflicted. He had already told Immortal Emperor Gochen about Xiao Hua's goodwill. However, it was obvious that Immortal Emperor Gochen didn't care too much about Xiao Hua's goodwill. After all, on the hidden immortal continent, the Tao Gate was weak. Even someone as strong as the Grand Mist ancestor wasn't in Immortal Emperor Gochen's eyes. Although Xiao Hua's rise was like the rising sun, Immortal Emperor Gochen didn't take him seriously. Sun Jian was also prepared to slowly reveal Xiao Hua's power and fulfill his promise with Xiao Hua. However, Xiao Hua suddenly caused such a big commotion in the 1,000 demons sacred realm. Although Sun Jian didn't know what Xiao Hua did, how could the appearance of hundreds of thousands of high-level Tao Gate disciples be a small matter? Although the Sky Secret Hall might not know about this matter now, they would know sooner or later. Instead of being passive at that time, it was better to tell Immortal Emperor Gochen now. Thus, Sun Jian thought for a while and said, Your Majesty, regarding the appearance of hundreds of thousands of high-level Tao Gate disciples in the 1,000 demons sacred realm, it shouldn't be the Grand Mist ancestors' doing. If I'm not mistaken, I think it has something to do with Xiao Hua. Immortal Emperor Gochen was obviously stunned. He looked at Sun Jian in disbelief. However, his expression returned to normal in an instant. After pondering for a while, he asked, in other words, while Xiao Hua was cultivating, he was also nurturing many Tao Gate disciples? Sun Jian didn't answer Immortal Emperor Gochen's question. Instead, he cleverly changed the topic. Your Majesty, I have already told you about Xiao Hua's intentions. According to my understanding, Xiao Hua isn't an ambitious person. To put it bluntly, he is perhaps a village farmer who is content with a small fortune. However, his luck was extremely good and his strength reached his current level. The situation of the 3 continents forced him to come to the front. In fact, he only wanted to cultivate peacefully and didn't want to be distracted by other things. In addition, I have also come into contact with those disciples of his, and I even have a life and death friendship with them. As for the outer disciples, I can't say. Those disciples that he taught himself don't have any special ambitions. Therefore, I think that Your Majesty should be on good terms with Xiao Hua. Unfortunately, before he finished speaking, Immortal Emperor Gochen laughed again. Not only do I want to be on good terms with Xiao Hua, I also want to use Xiao Hua to restrain the Grand Mist ancestor. Chapter 4461. After hearing this, Sun Jian's sweat dripped down his back again. He knew Xiao Hua's temper. Xiao Hua was amenable to coaxing but not coercion. He hated being used by others the most. If Xiao Hua knew about Immortal Emperor Gaochun's plan, who knew what kind of loopholes he would make? Sun Jian hurriedly said, "Your Majesty." While they were talking, the emperor's golden throne violently shook again. Another piece of gold flew out. The emperor became impatient and picked it up to take a look. A rare trace of awkwardness appeared on his face. He looked at Sun Jian and asked, "Why is your auntie looking for you again? Didn't you go to the Hall of Fragrance earlier?" Well. Sun Jian was also stunned. He nodded and said, "I just returned to the Immortal Palace and went to see you in the Hall of Fragrance." "Forget it, you should go." The emperor helplessly said, "I have already scolded her twice. If I refute her again, she will be angry." "Yes, I understand." Sun Jian didn't dare to say anything else and bowed, "I will go right away." However, just as he said that, Sun Jian seemed to have thought of something and said, "Oh right, if it's possible, Your Majesty, send a decree to the Hall of Enlightenment not to provoke the hundreds of thousands of Dao sect cultivators, or let me take charge of this matter. Your Majesty only needs to invite Senior Wenxiu into the Wenxiu Palace, and everything will be fine. Your Majesty and I will only need to find the thief who covets Your Majesty's throne." "Okay, I understand. Go to the Hall of Fragrance." The emperor was clearly absent-minded and said, "Be careful, don't let your whereabouts be exposed." Sun Jian wryly smiled, "Your Majesty, I am now the Sun Palace's Grand General. A trip to the Hall of Fragrance won't cause any suspicion, right? All in all, just be careful." Immortal Emperor Gaochun waved his sleeve and signaled for Sun Jian to leave. Not to mention Sun Jian, the Nangong young noble, Nangong Jingyin, asked Immortal Emperor Gaochun for permission to visit the Eastern Sea Emperor at the Lingyun Palace. After coming out of the palace, he went straight to the west of the palace. He flew past many pavilions and clouds before finally arriving at the foot of a mountain. The Immortal Palace had always been dominated by palaces. Even with Nangong Jingyin's experience, she couldn't help but stop in the air. After a while, she broke out from the intoxication of the mountain scenery and smiled. "Since ancient times, I only felt that the 4 seasons were new, but I didn't know that the autumn moon was near. Only when the mortal world is heavy would I feel that the scenery of the mountain ridges is new." The moment she finished reciting, a yellow scarf warrior suddenly came out from the foot of the mountain. This yellow scarf strongman was at least 1,000 feet tall. His body surged with an awe-inspiring aura, emitting a reddish-yellow luster. "Who are you? How dare you trespass into the Hall of Fragrance?" The yellow scarf warrior shouted, "If you have no intention of offending, then turn around and I'll pretend that I didn't see anything." Nangong Jingyi naturally wasn't afraid. She stood firmly in the air and bowed, "This one is the young noble of the Nangong family, Nangong Jingyin. This one has already paid respects to the Immortal Emperor and received his order to come and pay respects to the Eastern Abyss Empress." The yellow scarf warrior was stunned and raised his hand, "Do you have the Immortal Emperor's decree?" "The Immortal Emperor is discussing important matters in the palace and doesn't have the time to care about this one." Nangong Jingyin calmly replied, "Thus, this one doesn't have the Immortal Emperor's decree, only the Nangong family's token." "Where is the token?" The yellow scarf warrior roared with a respectful tone. "Please examine it." Nangong Jingyin took out her token and handed it to the warrior. The yellow scarf warrior took the token and looked at it before saying, "Please wait a moment." Then, the yellow scarf warrior flew into the mountain and disappeared. Not long later, a woman in palace attire flew out with Nangong Jingyin's token. When she got close, she handed the token back and bowed with a smile, "Young Master Nangong, the Empress invites you in." "Many thanks, sister, please lead the way." Nangong Jingyin took the token and carefully held it in his hand before returning the greeting. That woman covered her mouth and smiled, "Young Master Nangong, please." Nangong Jingyin looked at the woman's swaying waist and her graceful figure as she controlled the clouds with a trace of a smile on his face. Then, he lowered his head and followed behind. After flying over the mountain, 5-colored clouds covered the entire mountain range. Moreover, in the air, strands of elegant fragrance entered his nose. Nangong Jingyin lightly breathed in, and when that fragrance entered his body, a refreshing feeling appeared in his mind. Not only did his limbs and bones feel comfortable, even the qi in his middle dantian sped up. Sister. Nangong Jingyin said, the fragrance-spreading palace is indeed the most beautiful place in the Immortal Palace. Every time I go there, I feel a little younger. Sister is serving the Empress in the fragrance-spreading palace. Not to mention 1,000 years, even 10,000 years later, you will still be as young as you are now. Hee, no wonder the Empress is biased. Young Master Nangong's mouth is really sweet. Hearing this, the woman was elated. Her face blushed and she smiled. Celestial Empress was about to head to the back of the mountain to pick the wood heart grass. When she heard that young Master Nangong was coming, she ordered people to postpone the matter and hurriedly sent this servant to invite you. If it was someone else, the Empress would definitely not meet them. This is all my fault. Nangong Jingyin smiled and said, the sisters are all prepared, but they were delayed because of me. I have to apologize. As she spoke, Nangong Jingyin took out a jade box and handed it over to that woman. Sister, this is a heart-cleansing pill made by my Nangong family. It isn't anything precious, but it has some unique benefits for skin maintenance. Normally, the women of my Nangong family would use this to maintain their beauty. Sister, please give this to the other sisters and ask them to forgive me. Is that so? This is the Nangong family's heart-cleansing pill? That woman's figure stopped as shock appeared in her eyes. This servant has long heard of this heart-cleansing pill. Although the name sounds ordinary, it is extremely useful for women like us. Nangong Jingyin smiled and stuffed the jade box into the woman's hands. She waved her hand and said, rumors are inevitably exaggerated. This heart-cleansing pill is just an ordinary pill made by my Nangong family. Sister, you don't have to mind it. Hee, if that's the case, then this servant will bring the other sisters to thank young master. The woman giggled and carefully put it away. How could she not know how precious this heart-cleansing pill was? By the way, sister, how is the Empress' mood these few days? Nangong Jingyin asked casually. The woman naturally understood this logic. She didn't try to hide it and said with a smile, Celestial Empress has been in a good mood these few days, much better than before. Otherwise, she wouldn't think of going to the back mountain. Many thanks, big sister. Nangong Jingyin understood and didn't ask any more questions, only replying with a smile. Afterward, the woman brought Nangong Jingyin and flew forward again. In just a short moment, they entered the 5-colored clouds. Within the clouds, there was a palace on the foot of the mountain. This palace's style was simple and unadorned. An auspicious aura surged into the sky. Immortal birds were leisurely circling around the palace, and immortal beasts were leisurely pacing around the palace. The palace was extremely large and seemed to cover the entire foot of the mountain. However, there were layers of clouds above the palace, and the majority of it couldn't be seen with the naked eye. There was a door in the palace, and there was a group of female generals in front of it. These female generals wore armor and held imperial artifacts. They all looked valiant and formidable. When the female generals saw someone flying over, they immediately went on guard. The 2 female generals in front even used eye-clearing techniques to examine Nangong Jingyin. Nangong Jingyin had a smile on her face as she nodded at the 2 female generals. She didn't stop and followed the woman who led the way to the palace. The 2 didn't land, and the group of female generals had already formed a formation and faintly surrounded the 2 of them. When that woman landed, she smiled at the female general in front and said, General Rainbow Phoenix, this is the young master of the Nangong family, Nangong Jingyin. She is here to greet the Empress. Go in. General Rainbow Phoenix glanced at Nangong Jingyin and nodded. She waved her hand, and the group of female generals behind her moved aside. However, they still remained vigilant not far away. Behind the female general was the palace door. This door was also grand, and there were 3 flamboyant inscriptions on it: fragrance-spreading palace. The doors of the Hall of Fragrance were divided into 9 sections, but they were not completely open. Only the door on the far right was half closed, neither too big nor too small. The woman walked to the door and said respectfully, "Young Master Nangong, please, okay." Nangong Jingyin nodded and walked in. The woman hurriedly turned around and walked towards a side door. Nangong Jingyin stepped into the fragrance-spreading palace and was greeted by thousands of flowers. Some were big, some were small, some were blooming, and some were budding. They filled the entire fragrance-spreading palace. Other than the dense fragrance in her nose, there was only a myriad of colors. There wasn't a single path, nor was there a palace. Nangong Jingyin looked around and couldn't help but feel dizzy. The moment Nangong Jingyin closed her eyes, that woman flew out from a flower beside her and said respectfully, "Young Master Nangong, please follow this servant, sister, please." Nangong Jingyin opened her eyes. Her eyes were clear now. The woman didn't move. Instead, she stepped into a faint yellow flower bud. The instant she stepped in, the flower bud suddenly expanded to more than 30 meters in size. Nangong Jingyin didn't dare to delay and quickly followed. Swoosh! A faint yellow light mixed with clouds covered the entire flower bud. Nangong Jingyin felt the entire world shake. His body seemed to have moved a little, but it didn't seem to have moved at all. The flower bud returned to its original state. Chapter 4462. Shortly after, the woman brought Nangong Jingyin to 8 similar colored flower buds. After the last flower bud turned, the entire flower bud flew out from the flowers and brought Nangong Jingyin and the woman into the flower bushes. The bushes were torn apart like clouds, and Nangong Jingyin's eyes lit up. She was already on the stairs of a palace. Empress. The woman landed on the stairs and immediately bowed. Nangong family's young master Nangong Jingyin requests an audience, announce. A clear voice sounded from within the palace, and a grassy lawn appeared from the clouds and extended to Nangong Jingyin's feet. Servant Nangong Jingyin greets Empress. Nangong Jingyin stepped onto the lawn and bowed. As she spoke, the lawn returned to the palace, and the clouds dissipated. Nangong Jingyin's eyes blurred, and she was standing in a palace filled with flowers. There was also a golden chair at the top of this palace, and a woman who was 3,000 meters tall sat on it. She had a dignified appearance and had a kind smile on her face. There were countless auspicious signs on her palace dress. On the left side of the golden throne, countless inscriptions formed the shape of a phoenix. They danced proudly, and wisps of luck that were as thin as strands of cloud surged out of the void as the phoenix flapped its wings. They either entered the woman's palace dress or the golden throne, and faint rumbling sounds could be heard. This woman was none other than the East Sea Empress, the mother of the world. Seeing Nangong Jingyin bow, the East Ocean Empress raised her hand. "Servant Nangong, you may rise." "Thank you, Empress." Nangong Jingyin still didn't dare to raise her head. She only looked at the auspicious clouds below her. The East Ocean Empress was very satisfied with Nangong Jingyin's respectful attitude and asked, "I heard that the calamities on the hidden Immortal continent are endless. Not only are the commoners homeless, but many scholarly families are also declining. I wonder how the situation is now." Nangong Jingyin replied, "Empress, you care for the world, and I truly admire you. 10 days ago, this humble subject received a message from the clan and mentioned the recent disaster. Please be at ease, Celestial Empress. This humble subject does not know about other places, but within the capabilities of my Nangong aristocratic family, not a single person of the secular world has left their home, much less become homeless. Not only did my Nangong family use all of our resources to help the people who were affected by the disaster, we even traveled thousands of miles to purchase good seeds that could resist the disaster. We distributed them to the people of the world for free so that they could fill their stomachs and cultivate them. AI, If all the clans were like the Nangong clan, then why would the Immortal Emperor have to work so hard every day? The East Sea Empress sighed. It's really been hard on the Nangong clan. I don't dare, this is what I should do as a subject. Nangong Jingyin replied neither haughtily nor humbly. Crown Prince, what brings you to my Hall of Fragrance today? The East Sea Empress smiled and said, your Nangong family has done a lot for the hidden immortal continent. If I can participate in politics, I will definitely ask the Immortal Emperor to reward your Nangong family. Nangong Jingyin smiled and said, this humble subject has not come to the Hall of Fragrance for a long time, and I miss Celestial Empress very much. Furthermore, this humble subject's mother has also sent a message, and she specially instructed this humble subject to come over. She said that she has something to tell Celestial Empress. Oh. What matter does Xing have to be so mysterious? The East Sea Empress smiled and said, this humble subject has known your mother since young. After this humble subject married into the Sun family, she married into the Nangong family. However, every year during this humble subject's birthday banquet, she would send her regards over. How long has it been? If there is something, why didn't she say it that day? This. Nangong Jingyin said embarrassedly, Mother said clearly in the message that this humble subject is not allowed to take a look, so this humble subject does not know. Hee, take it out. The East Sea Empress smiled and said. Yes. Nangong Jingyin nodded and carefully took out a palm-sized pink jade pendant and respectfully presented it. At this moment, a female official walked out from the nearby clouds. This female official took the jade pendant and looked at it. She then opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of qi, which entered the jade pendant. Rumble. With a soft sound, four-colored qi surged out from the jade pendant and transformed into a several qi-long subbody. This subbody was an absolute beauty, and she was also wearing palace attire. She looked around and bowed towards the East Sea Empress. This subject, Sun Yaoxing, greets Celestial Empress. This subject has come to greet Celestial Empress as a Yuan spirit child. This subject seeks Celestial Empress understanding. Hee, it's fine. The East Sea Empress waved her hand and smiled, this is the fragrance-spreading palace. Other than your family's boy, there are no other subjects here. There is no need to be so courteous. Furthermore, this humble subject also knows that if you were to make a trip to the Immortal Palace, you would have to submit a letter of approval first. Your Nangong family also has to go through many formalities, and this humble subject is truly inconvenient. For you to come and see this humble subject as a Yuan spirit child, this humble subject is already very happy. Thank you, Celestial Empress. Nangong Jingyin's mother did not lose her respect because of the Celestial Empress's words. She still carefully replied, how is Celestial Empress recently? Sigh, not really. The East Sea Empress sighed, I believe you also know that this matter, this humble subject does not feel good in my heart. Hee, that's right. Nangong Jingyin's mother smiled and said, which mother would be unhappy if this matter happened to her? If was imprisoned in the Heaven Punishment Prison Crystal, this subject will also think of a way to save him. You will think of a way. But this humble subject cannot. The East Sea Empress shook her head and said, this humble subject is the mother of the world and must be a role model. This matter cannot make things difficult for the Immortal Emperor. Speaking of this, the East Sea Empress was a little bewildered. She looked at the slightly dimmed sub-body of Nangong Jingyin's mother and asked, Xing, do you have any important matters? If this humble subject is able to do it, this humble subject will definitely help. Big sister. Nangong Jingyin's mother revealed a mysterious expression again. She even changed the way she addressed the East Sea Empress. She said softly, this little sister didn't leave much Yuan spirit in the jade pendant. I'm afraid I won't be able to hold on for long. Then, this little sister will make a long story short. Go ahead. The East Sea Empress nodded. Actually, this little sister didn't come today for my own matters. Nangong Jingyin's mother said, "This little sister heard about the 9th princess matter and knows that you are feeling terrible, so this little sister wants to help you." Oh. What does little sister mean? The East Sea Empress was dazed and was even more confused. "Big sister, what do you think of Nangong Jingyin's mother changed the topic and asked. The East Sea Empress glanced at the respectful Nangong Jingyin and replied, is a good child. Didn't the Immortal Emperor give him his courtesy name when he was 20 years old? Furthermore, during these years in the Immortal Palace, he has followed the rules and is the most outstanding among the princes of the 4 great families. Little sister, you are really lucky. Big sister, if our Nangong family and the Sun family are connected by marriage." Nangong Jingyin's mother smiled and said, "Do you think the Immortal Emperor will spare the 9th princess? Will he let her out to marry Oh. The East Sea Empress was shocked. Her eyes flashed with a complicated expression as her gaze landed on Nangong Jingyin. At this moment, Nangong Jingyin was also shocked and had a trace of shyness on her face. She didn't know where to put her hands and feet. After a while, the East Sea Empress asked, "Little sister, is this your idea or Nangong's? Big sister is thinking too much." Nangong Jingyin's mother smiled and said, "Nangong doesn't know about this at all. I didn't even tell I just want to hear your opinion. If you think it's suitable, I will discuss it with Nangong." Doesn't have anything to be picky about. The East Sea Empress said softly, "The Nangong family is also one of the 4 great families. If Nangong comes to propose marriage, the Immortal Emperor will definitely give face." Of course. At this point, the East Sea Empress didn't say anything else. In fact, she also understood that the 4 great families wanted to make the Immortal Emperor a mere figurehead. The Immortal Emperor had always wanted to find a breakthrough point between the 4 great families and the Immortal Palace. However, the 4 great families were like one, and the Immortal Emperor had no chance at all. At this moment, Nangong Jingyin's mother proposed marriage. It sounded like her own idea, but the East Sea Empress didn't believe that Nangong Jingyin's mother didn't discuss it with the Nangong family's family head, Nangong Tianjiao. As for the Nangong family's intention, the East Sea Empress could faintly guess. From the family head's name, Nangong Tianjiao, one could see that Nangong Tianjiao was a prideful person. At this moment, the Nangong family was not only suppressed by the Dongfang and Shiman families, but even the Dark North family, which had always been ranked last, had the strength to compete with the Nangong family. Therefore, if the Nangong family wanted to become the head of the 4 great families, Nangong Tianjiao had to find an external power. The Immortal Palace's military school was his best choice. Of course, when the Nangong family proposed marriage, it was unavoidable that they would hit the East Sea Empress when they were down. However, this was also a sore point for the East Sea Empress, so she had to consider it. On the day of the East Sea Empress birthday banquet, the Immortal Emperor invited the Thunder Temple's Vairocana world sovereign and the Great Sage Hall's golden-winged Great Sage to discuss the sutra seeking extreme bliss. He also invited them to watch the Immortal Palace's Heaven's Choice Gathering. The so-called Heaven's Choice Gathering was the battle to choose the Heaven's Heart. Because in the previous Heaven's Choice Gathering, the 9th Princess Xinshin won, and the Immortal Palace's half Heaven's Heart was given to her to comprehend. However, in order to save Xiaohua at the bottom of the Saint River, Princess Xinshin took out half of the Heaven's Heart. That half of the Heaven's Heart fell into Xiaohua's dantian and couldn't be taken out again. Therefore, in the Heaven's Choice Gathering, Princess Xinshin couldn't take out the only half of the Heaven's Heart. This caused the Immortal Emperor to lose all his face, and he was furious. Ignoring the East Sea Queen's pleas, he ordered the 3 provinces to bring the new princess to the hidden Immortal Continent and punish her severely. He also sent more people to find Tian Xian's whereabouts. Chapter 44-63. Princess Xian was the youngest daughter of the East Ocean Empress. She had been suppressed in the hidden Immortal Continent for more than 200 years. How could she not be worried? Seeing that the Nangong family's suggestion had the possibility of saving Princess Xian, she was naturally tempted. She believed that the immortal emperor would make some concessions in order to rope in the Nangong family. 200 years was a severe punishment for Princess Xian. Thus, the East Ocean Empress nodded. Sister, I feel that this matter can be done, but I don't know if is willing. Empress. Nangong Jingyin was a little embarrassed. This subject doesn't have any objections. Not to mention, I'm willing to sacrifice myself for the 9th princess. Just the 9th princess's peerless beauty is the ideal partner for me. I'm just afraid I'm not worthy of the 9th princess. As long as you're willing. The East Ocean Empress nodded. We don't know where Xian is being suppressed. How can we discuss with her if we want to save her? Besides, some things can only be done in this way because of parents' orders and matchmakers' words. Since big sister agrees, then I'll. Nangong Jingyin's mother's body suddenly dimmed, and her voice couldn't be heard anymore. She disappeared before she finished speaking. That jade pendant naturally fell into the hands of the female official. However, the female official's face was as pale as paper. She looked at the jade pendant in a daze before carefully handing it back to Nangong Jingyin. The East Ocean Empress changed the way she addressed Nangong Jingyin. Send a message according to what your mother said. Yes, this subject understands. Nangong Jingyin hurriedly bowed. This subject will send a message to the clan. I believe that it won't be long before the Empress will be able to see the 9th princess. Very good. The East Ocean Empress smiled. Your mother is so considerate. I'll remember it. I'll take my leave now. I will send a message to you. Nangong Jingyin bowed, and when she turned around, she couldn't help but smile. When Nangong Jingyin walked out of the fragrance-spreading palace, a woman from before came forward to send him out. The moment he disappeared, the female official couldn't help but kneel on the ground and cry out, Empress, please don't betroth the 9th princess to the Nangong family. Otherwise, even if the 9th princess was rescued, she wouldn't be happy. Perhaps, she would rather be suppressed in the lower realms. Oh. Ha ha ha. The East Ocean Empress was stunned. Then, as if she had thought of something, she said angrily, Damned servant, are you hiding something from me? This female official was naturally the female official of the new princess palace, ha ha ha. The new princess was suppressed in the lower realms by the 3 provinces of Leitang, so the Emperor's Star Palace was temporarily sealed. Ha ha ha, and the other female officials were either guarding the Emperor's Star Palace or sent to other palaces. Ha 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 happened to be sent to the fragrance-spreading palace. Today, when she saw that the East Ocean Empress had the intention of betrothing the new princess to Nangong Jingyin, she immediately thought of Xiao Hua. She naturally knew that the new princess was in love with Xiao Hua. Hearing the East Ocean Empress's scolding, Ha Ha Ha's mind spun rapidly. But at this moment, she didn't dare to hide it anymore. She was afraid that the new princess would be depressed for the rest of her life. Thus, Ha 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 carefully probed, Empress, do you still remember how the princess begged you to give her half a day before she was suppressed? I remember. The East Ocean Empress said impatiently, I thought she wanted to deal with Jinru's matter, so I begged the Immortal Emperor. The Immortal Emperor only gave her half a day. Damn it, could it be that she? Yes, the princess went to the lower realm to bid farewell to that person. Ha 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 didn't dare to say Xiao Hua's name and said submissively. Damn it, she's actually from the lower realm. The East Ocean Empress was furious. Which family is this person from? Why didn't I know anything about this? He's not a Confucian cultivator. Ha 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 was about to cry. She knew better than anyone that as the 9th princess of the Immortal Palace, how could Xin marry a Taoist cultivator? Not a Confucian cultivator? Could it be a monk? Could it be a demon? The East Ocean Empress was even more surprised. Didn't the little monk that Xin befriended in the past attain Nanwa wisdom Manjushri Buddha fruit? No, it's not monk Ci Hui, it's a Taoist cultivator. Ha ha ha, squeezed out another sentence. Damn it. This is another trick of that Grand Mist ancestor, right? The East Ocean Empress immediately thought of the Grand Mist ancestor. Ha ha ha, quickly said, this servant doesn't know, but it shouldn't be. Hurry up and tell me. The East Sea Empress panicked. Her body glowed brightly, and the golden throne shone as brightly as the sun. She had wanted to save her daughter, but she had not expected her daughter to betray the Tao to such an extent. She had actually gotten involved with a Taoist cultivator. Ha ha ha, had no intention of resisting the East Ocean Empress's power. She told her everything she knew in detail. In the end, she didn't forget to say, this servant pleads with the Empress that the princess and that person are connected by heart. Although she hasn't told that person, but this servant can see that she's always thinking about that person. She's often in a daze with a smile in her eyes. If the Empress marries the princess to the Nangong family, I'm afraid the princess will never be happy. If that's the case, it's better to let her be suppressed in the lower realm. Damn it, damn it, damn it. The East Ocean Empress was furious. Why didn't you say so earlier? Empress, this servant didn't have the princess's permission. How would I dare to say it? Ha ha ha, argued. Moreover, that person is a Taoist cultivator. If the Empress finds out, won't she beat this servant to death? Aren't you afraid that I'll beat you to death now? The East Ocean Empress sneered. This servant is afraid, but this servant is more afraid that the princess will be sad for the rest of her life. Ha ha ha, replied hurriedly. Even if this servant is beaten to death by the Empress, I don't want the Empress to hurt the princess's life because of your love for her. Humph, previously you were suppressed because of Gusu Churi's relationship with a Taoist cultivator. Now, you're really a troublemaker. The East Ocean Empress was so angry that she trembled and almost cursed. This servant doesn't dare. Ha ha ha, felt wronged. This servant doesn't know how the princess met that person. Who is that person? The East Ocean Empress snapped out of her anger and scolded, tell me. He. Ha ha ha, bit her lips and said softly, his name is Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua? The East Ocean Empress was stunned. She thought for a while and said, this name is familiar. It doesn't seem like he's a subordinate of the Grand Mist ancestor. The Empress knows Xiao Hua's name? Ha ha ha, was shocked. I think I've heard it somewhere before. The East Ocean Empress thought and asked, where is this Xiao Hua in the hidden Immortal continent? What's his cultivation? How does he know? At this point, the East Ocean Empress stopped. How could Ha 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 know so much about the new princess? This servant doesn't know where Xiao Hua is in the hidden Immortal continent. This servant only knows that he should be at the 5th grade Essence Force 200 years ago. Now, he should be at the 6th grade Essence Force. Ha ha ha, naturally had to flatter Xiao Hua. She did her best to increase Xiao Hua's cultivation. Humph, he is merely a 5th grade origin power. How could he possibly reach 6th grade origin power in 200 years? The East Sea Empress scoffed. However, as she spoke, she suddenly exclaimed in shock, I remember now. As she spoke, the East Ocean Empress thought for a while and muttered, he should still be in the Lingyun Palace at this time. As she spoke, the East Ocean Empress raised her hand and patted the golden seat. A piece of gold leaf flew out from the golden seat. The East Ocean Empress said a few words and pointed. The gold leaf fell into the golden seat and disappeared. What does Xiao Hua look like? The East Ocean Empress asked. Ha ha ha, hesitated for a while and waved her hand. A tricolored cloud flew out and condensed into Xiao Hua's image in the air. Humph, he's just an ordinary cultivator. The East Ocean Empress looked and waved her hand, shattering Xiao Hua's image. She said, do you know what Xian said to Xiao Hua in the lower realm? This servant doesn't know. Ha 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 smiled and said, the princess only brought this servant along as a companion. Humph, what else do you know? The East Ocean Empress was a little angry. Ha 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 said, this servant also knows that Xiao Hua is a rare merciful person. His cultivation is also very profound. In the future, his name will shake the world. Humph, there's no need to wait. The East Ocean Empress couldn't help but snort again. If I'm not wrong, his name will soon shake the world. Ah. Ha 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 was stunned. She looked at the East Ocean Empress in confusion. Why isn't he here yet? The East Ocean Empress was a little anxious. She patted the golden seat again and sent out another piece of gold leaf. This time, the East Ocean Empress didn't ask ha 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 anything. She sat on the golden seat and thought quietly. It seemed like she was planning something. After waiting for the time it took to brew a cup of tea, there was still no movement. The East Ocean Empress sent out another piece of gold leaf. Fortunately, another piece of gold leaf flew over. The East Ocean Empress looked at it and ordered, in a while, the new Sun Palace Great General Sun Cho, who is in charge of the Immortal Palace's defense, will come to visit me. Go and bring him here. Yes, Empress. Someone outside the palace answered and left. The East Ocean Empress looked at Ha 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 and said, you can leave first. Yes. Ha 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 didn't dare to say more and obediently left. Not long after, Sun Jian entered the Hall of Fragrance. He looked at the East Ocean Empress in confusion and bowed. The new Sun Palace Great General Sun Cho greets the East Ocean Empress. My beloved subject, you may rise. The East Ocean Empress pretended to wave her hand, indicating for Sun Jian to rise. She said, my beloved subject, what brings you here? Chapter 44-64. Sun Jian said respectfully, I am the newly appointed Great General of the Sun Palace, responsible for the safety of the Immortal Palace. However, I do not know much about the Immortal Palace, so I am here to ask for your guidance. Oh, the Immortal Emperor has entrusted the heavy responsibility of the Immortal Palace's defense to you. Looks like he has high hopes for you. The East Sea Empress nodded slightly and replied, if we're talking about the defenses of the Immortal Palace, then that should be the greatest secret of the Immortal Palace. At this point, the East Sea Empress raised her hand and patted the golden chair beneath her. Caw. Several phoenix cries rang out, and dozens of phoenix-shaped inscriptions flew out, covering the entire Hall of Fragrance. When the clouds surged out, the East Sea Empress figure slowly shrank until she turned into an ordinary woman with a kind face. Although the East Sea Empress had a smile on her face and her eyes were filled with concern and anxiety, the elegance she exuded was still unbearable. Aunt, why did you call the boy over? Sun Jian smiled and said, you sent 3 messages in a row, which made Uncle very unhappy. Humph, it's up to him whether he's happy or not. The East Sea Empress snorted coldly. Only he is allowed to uphold the dignity and face of the Immortal Emperor, but not the feelings of husband and wife. Can't I be a little angry? Sun Jian naturally knew what the East Sea Empress was angry about. He could only comfort her. Aunt, if it's just about the 9th princess, Uncle did not do anything wrong. After all, he is the Immortal Emperor, and there are 8 other princesses above the 9th princess. Not only does he have to face the Thunder Temple and Great Sage Hall, he also has to answer to the other 8 princesses. If he doesn't punish the 9th princess, how can he lead the Confucian cultivators? Even if he wants to punish her, he doesn't have to be so cruel. The East Sea Empress knew that Sun Jian's words were reasonable. She sighed and said, poor Xian. She has been suppressed in the lower realm for more than 200 years. I wonder how she is doing in the Heaven Punishment Prison Crystal. Aunt, don't worry. Sun Jian was still comforting her. The 9th princess controls the Thunder and Thunder provinces. Even if she is imprisoned, the law enforcers will not dare to make things too difficult for her. As long as there is a chance in the future, Uncle will definitely find a chance for the 9th princess to atone for her crimes. The East Sea Empress sneered, he only cares about his throne. Ever since the Heaven's Choice Assembly, he hasn't come to the Hall of Fragrance. Oh right, Jean, you have to keep an eye on the Immortal Emperor for me. I heard that he's been going to the Flower Medicine Palace recently. If there's any movement, you have to inform me as soon as possible. Flower Medicine Palace? Sun Tian was slightly taken aback as he asked curiously, isn't that Fairy Yu? At this point, Sun Jian smiled bitterly. He knew he couldn't continue. Sure enough, the East Sea Empress' face turned cold when she heard Fairy Yu. She said coldly, that's right, it's Fairy Yu. What do you think the Flower Medicine Palace has to do with? Was it worth him going there again and again? Does he think that I won't be able to find him just because he's invisible? Ahem. Sun Tian coughed lightly and said, Auntie, Boy understands. Boy will definitely patrol the Flower Medicine Palace diligently in the future and give Uncle some warnings. That's good. The East Sea Empress nodded and said, Auntie didn't raise you in vain. In this Immortal Palace, you're the only person I care about the most. Auntie, if there's nothing else, Boy will take his leave first. Sun Jian smiled and said, Boy's enemies haven't discovered the boy's true identity. Boy has to quickly find out who harmed Boy. Oh, don't be anxious. The East Sea Empress hurriedly said, Auntie called you over to ask you something. Auntie, please speak. Sun Jian was a little confused. He thought that the East Sea Empress had called him over to keep an eye on the Immortal Emperor. Auntie, do you remember that when you just came back, you said that you fell into the Heaven's prison with a Tao sect cultivator called Xiaohua? The East Sea Empress stared at Sun Jian and asked. Yes, why? Sun Jian was even more confused because the East Sea Empress was looking at him strangely. What does that Xiaohua look like? The East Sea Empress hurriedly asked. When Sun Jian revealed Xiaohua's appearance in the air, the East Sea Empress' eyes revealed a look of realization. She pondered for a moment and said, in other words, before this Xiaohua fell into the Heaven's prison, he was a level 4 or 5 elemental energy. Now, he's a level 8 elemental energy like you? This. Sun Jian was a little hesitant. He didn't talk much about this with the East Sea Empress. However, after thinking for a moment, he answered honestly, reporting to Auntie, Xiaohua's aptitude is rare in this world. Many of Boy's sacred arts were taught by him. Moreover, his current strength should be at level 9 elemental energy. Level 9 elemental energy? Then isn't he a Tao sect Mahayana realm cultivator? The East Sea Empress was shocked, but her eyes revealed a kind of joy. Yes. Sun Jian didn't dare to be too secretive in front of this auntie who was similar to his mother. He said, Xiaohua's current strength is at least level 9 elemental energy. Good. The East Sea Empress clapped and smiled. Then, she asked, that's right, what's Xiaohua's character like? Auntie, why are you asking about this? Sun Jian was rather confused. He felt that the East Sea Empress didn't look like an empress at all. She was practically like a matchmaker in the marketplace. Hurry up and tell me. The East Sea Empress asked impatiently. Xiaohua's character is too good. He has too many good points. Sun Jian thought for a moment and said, Boy, it's not good to list them one by one. In any case, it's best to describe him as unparalleled in chivalry and benevolence. Is he really that good? The East Sea Empress couldn't believe it. She asked curiously, Jian, you're not lying to Auntie, right? Why would Boy lie to Auntie? Sun Jian said with a smile. Auntie doesn't even know him. There's no need for that boy, right? Then. The East Sea Empress' eyes turned again, and she asked, does he have a dual cultivation partner? Sun Jian was completely stunned. He also looked at the East Sea Empress in disbelief. Auntie, why are you asking this? it's nothing. The East Sea Empress said with a smile. Auntie just feels that he saved you, and you're Auntie's boy. Auntie is thinking of how to repay him. Our Immortal Palace has the most female officials. If I introduce one to him, not only can I repay his kindness, I can also recruit a capable person for your uncle. That's why I called you over to ask. Forget it. Sun Jian said with a wave of his hand. Boy hasn't seen Xiao Hua have a dual cultivation partner. However, from what he said, he seems to have someone he likes. However, due to some reasons that he isn't willing to say, they can't be together for the time being. The East Sea Empress' face revealed a benevolent expression. She said with a smile, looks like this Xiao Hua is a good child. Sun Jian said with a smile, spiritual master Xiao has always been good to his own family. Even if it's a stranger, he's still benevolent. However, he's someone who can be persuaded by reason but not cowed by force. Whenever someone takes him seriously, his temper flares up. Not to mention the ordinary demonic beasts, even the devil race would be eaten alive by him. That's for the best, that's for the best. The East Sea Empress was more and more delighted as she listened. She nodded and said, tell Auntie more about Xiao Hua. Even if Sun Jian was an 8th grade origin energy literature saint, he was still a human. As long as he was a human, he couldn't hide any secrets. Sun Jian was somewhat wary of immortal emperors, afraid that they would provoke Xiao Hua. However, in front of his own aunt, he didn't hide anything. He told her how he met Xiao Hua, how he fell into the heavens prison, and how he cultivated. Of course, Sun Jian didn't go into detail about what happened in the ruins. He only said that it was an experience in the illusion. Illusions tested one's humanity the most. Of course, the East Sea Empress didn't suspect him. Sun Jian also told the East Sea Empress about what happened in the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range. He was afraid that the Immortal Palace really had something going on with the Fortune Gate. He wanted to rely on the East Sea Empress to deal with the Immortal Emperor. Sun Jian spoke for almost an hour before he bid farewell and left. After Sun Jian left, the East Sea Empress sat on the golden throne and pondered for a long time. Then, her expression changed. The joy on her face turned into coldness. She said in a low voice, escort Biyao to the palace. Yes, Empress. The female general outside the Hall of Fragrance immediately answered. In just a moment, Biyao was brought in. Biyao's face was pale. She had only left the Hall of Fragrance for an hour, and now she was being escorted by a female general. She was terrified. Biyao. The East Sea Empress looked coldly at Biyao and said, as female officials of the Emperor's Star Palace, you knew that the 9th princess' actions were wrong. Not only did you not remind her, you even hid it for her. Now that the 9th princess has been severely punished, you can't escape punishment either. Seeing that you have worked hard and that you have just been punished, I will not let the 3 provinces imprison you in the Heaven's Punishment Prison Crystal. I will only banish you to the lower realm. Do you accept this? When Biyao heard this, she couldn't help but tremble. She opened her mouth to explain, but the East Sea Empress didn't mention any other mistakes. She only said that she hid it and didn't punish her too severely. She was only removed from her position as an immortal official and banished to the lower realm. She really had nothing to explain. After thinking for a moment, Biyao lowered her head and said, I accept. At this point, Biyao looked up and said, however, I ask that Empress reconsider what I said earlier. Don't let the 9th princess regret it for the rest of her life. Humph. The East Sea Empress snorted. You don't need to worry about my matters. Just worry about yourself. I understand. Biyao lowered her head, not daring to say more. Take her out. The East Sea Empress ordered. The female generals beside her immediately rushed forward, took Biyao, and pushed her out. Rainbow Phoenix. After the female generals left, the East Sea Empress asked again, which part of the hidden immortal continent is the most chaotic right now? Empress. The Rainbow Phoenix General hurriedly replied, "Right now, the 9 states of the hidden immortal continent are suffering from famine and war. I can't say which part is the most chaotic." "Oh." The East Sea Empress glanced at the Rainbow Phoenix General and said calmly, "Just now, the new Great General of the Sun Palace, Sun Cho, said that the Great General of the Lunar Temple has already gone to the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range to suppress the remnants of the Tao sect." "Yes, that's it. Banish by and to the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range." Chapter 4465. Empress. General Colored Phoenix was shocked and hurriedly said, "Although Tao Wu has some strength, she is a woman after all. If she is banished to the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range, I'm afraid she will be in danger. Empress, please show mercy and spare Tao Wu." "Damn it." The East Sea Empress was furious. "I've already made a decision and you dare to disobey? Do you want to be banished to the lower realm too?" "I don't dare." General Colored Phoenix did not dare to say more. She lowered her head and followed the order. She directed the female general of Fragrance Hall to escort Tao Wu and urged the clouds to fly out of the magnificent mountain range. Xiaohua, Xiaohua. The East Sea Empress sat on the golden chair with a mysterious smile on her face. She thought to herself, "I'd like to see what kind of surprise you can bring me." Xiaohua naturally did not know that Princess Xian was suppressed in the Heaven Punishment Prison Crystal of the hidden immortal continent. He also did not know that the East Sea Empress was trying her best to scheme against him in order to save her daughter. At this moment, he was flying to the Chidi River with Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu. These 3 Dao sect cultivators could now be regarded as the supreme cultivators of the Dao sect in the 3 continents. However, they did not use any special magic. They just moved their bodies and flew high in the sky of the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. The speed of the 3 was not fast but not too slow either. Seeing the constantly changing scenery and the changes in the sky, Xiaohua naturally would not give up the opportunity to ask the 2 immortals for advice. Whether it was the questions he had during cultivation or his own guesses, he told them all. Xiaohua had a good impression of Xiaohua. He did not have much time to give him pointers during their previous meetings. Now that he had free time and wanted to borrow Xiaohua's power, Su Ji answered all of Xiaohua's questions. Looking at Fairy Xingyu, at first, she just pursed her lips and smiled. From time to time, she would mock Su Ji, saying that he wanted to take in a disciple before leaving the 3 continents. However, a few days later, as Xiaohua's questions became more and more profound, Fairy Xingyu could not help but speak. Fairy Xingyu's cultivation was not as high as Su Ji's, but she was the law envoy of the Palace of Justice. She knew many secrets of the immortal world and had seen many immortal cultivation techniques. Sometimes, Fairy Xingyu could answer Su Ji's questions very well. Of course, occasionally, there would be questions that the 2 immortals couldn't answer, causing them to argue. As they argued, the 2 immortals looked at each other. After all, Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu were immortals from the immortal world, while Xiaohua was only a Mahayana cultivator from the 3 continents. If Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu's cultivation was a lake, then Xiaohua was just a small puddle. However, when faced with Xiaohua's question, Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu felt that Xiaohua was no longer a small puddle. He might also be a lake. However, the lake might be smaller than them, but there were many waterways in the lake, and the waterways led to the boundless sea. Xiaohua was currently cruising around the edge of the lake, bitterly looking for the waterway that led to the sea. As long as Xiaohua found the direction that led to the boundless sea, regardless of the size of the waterway, it would not be able to stop his cultivation from growing like a hot knife through butter. At this point, Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu no longer doubted that Xiaohua could ascend. The only thing they wanted to know was what level Xiaohua would be when he ascended to the immortal world. However, they also guarded the secret of the immortal world and did not dare to reveal it. The only thing they could do was explain the profound meaning of cultivation to Xiaohua without reservation. After Xiaohua ascended to the immortal world, they could draw him into their sphere of influence. Of course, there was still a difference between Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu. Su Ji did not reveal his own selfish motives. He only tried his best to tell Xiao Hua about the gains and losses of his cultivation. On the other hand, Fairy Xingyu often revealed some of the benefits of the Palace of Justice. Xiao Hua was not in the mood to think too much. He only knew that he was now taking an immortal as his teacher. Every word from the two immortals was like a bright star in the sky, illuminating his cultivation path. He had long been immersed in an intoxicated state that was even more intense than ascension. Alas! Until one day, Fairy Xingyu sighed. Xiao Hua, your cultivation path is no longer difficult. All you need is time. From now on, even if you don't cultivate and sleep every day and night, your strength will slowly increase until the laws of the three continents can no longer tolerate you. They will wake you up and kick you directly to the immortal world. As for the tribulation, I can see it even with my eyes closed. How could the thunderbolt technique taught by the punishment envoy of the Palace of Justice not be able to withstand the thunder tribulation of ascension? If it weren't for the fact that entering the immortal world is a big crime, I would almost want to take you back to the immortal world. Xiao Hua's eyes flashed with starlight. Wisps of mystery swam in the starlight like chains. He raised his head in a daze. His thoughts had not awakened from the experience that should not exist in the three continents. He did not hear Fairy Xingyu's words at all. Don't listen to her nonsense. Su Ji said with a smile. No one knows what the result will be until the last step. Although I am the punishment envoy of the punishment palace and sometimes control the thunder tribulation is the will of heaven and earth. Even an immortal cannot know the profound meaning of the thunder tribulation. Although you have cultivated the thunderbolt technique, there is still a long way to go before you can resist the thunder tribulation. Well, if you still have time, you can experience the fury of thunder in Imo. The fury of thunder is the thunder cultivation technique practiced by the punishment envoys of the immortal world. It is said that it was created a long time ago when the punishment celestial lord comprehended the thunder tribulation and refined the immortal slaying stage. Of course, the fury of thunder is still different from the thunder tribulation. It can only help you understand the thunder tribulation a little more. Ha! Fairy Xingyu covered her mouth and laughed. Su Ji, didn't you say that you can't reveal the secrets of the immortal world? Why, did you tell Xiao Hua what cultivation technique the punishment envoys practice? It doesn't matter. Su Ji glanced at Fairy Xingyu with a rare trace of warmth in his eyes. He replied, immortals are also humans. How can they not have feelings? For a cultivator like Xiao Hua, even if I have to risk being punished, I want him to enter the immortal world as soon as possible. If Xiao Hua enters the immortal world, you can't snatch him from me. Fairy Xingyu pouted. Although he has already cultivated the thunderbolt technique. Su Ji smiled but didn't say anything. Fairy Xingyu hurriedly said to Xiao Hua, many of the cultivation methods I gave you are for the master of law of the Palace of Law to cultivate. For example, the light and cloud light technique, the swift and lightning technique. Thank you, seniors. Xiao Hua blinked and the strange phenomenon around him disappeared. He bowed and said, in the past few months, I have gained too much. To put it bluntly, this junior has been cultivating for such a long time, but there has never been a professor who has been so kind to me. This junior's heart is filled with gratitude. You don't have to be so polite. Fairy Xingyu said with a smile. When you go to the immortal world in the future, just listen to me. Su Ji said seriously, Xiao Hua, your aptitude is extraordinary, and we like you very much. But it is not your aptitude that makes me want to teach you. It is your mind and temperament. Not every cultivator of the Dao sect can take the dignity of ordinary people to heart, and they don't care about the life and death of the people in the world. You let Zhai Xinglu and the Luo Yi Merchant Union broadcast good seeds on the hidden immortal continent, and let the Fortune Gate in the soaring Dragon Mountain range plant good seeds. The food you cultivated in the original Fiend God blood pool alone has saved countless people in the secular world. In today's hidden immortal continent, the Confucian cultivators and the Buddhist sect may not know who Taoist Shao is, but ordinary people in the secular world know. Of course, they may not know that Taoist Shao is Shao Hua, but they really put Taoist Shao in their hearts and are grateful to him. With this kindness, I can't not teach you what I have learned. Speaking of this, Su Ji raised his eyebrows and looked into the distance, intentionally or unintentionally, and said, "Of course, I am just an ordinary law enforcer of the punishment palace. My cultivation may be higher than yours now, but in the future, I absolutely believe that you will be stronger than me. I only hope that no matter when and where you are in the future, you will not forget how good Fairy Xing Yu and I are to you today. Also, don't forget, the root of these good things, don't forget your original heart and the justice you pursue." Boom. It was unknown whether it was because Su Ji's words came from the bottom of his heart and caused Shao Hua to feel the same way, or because Shao Hua had been comprehending an extremely profound cultivation technique for the past few months and it had triggered his memories. As Su Ji's voice fell, Shao Hua's mind rumbled, and then many scenes gushed out from who knows where: a grave mound, a skinny child, a strict father, and a few deafening words of reprimand. "Shao Hua, be grateful. Remember, you must be grateful. Our family is relatively poor, and you left early. In the past 5 years, I know that your life has been more difficult and dangerous. I didn't fulfill my responsibility as a father and didn't teach you well. This isn't your fault. It's all my fault. Our family has received a lot of kindness from the Misty School. As they say, a drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring. You must remember that we must repay the kindness of the Misty School. Alas, last night, you talked about human nature in the Li family. Your father didn't know much about it. At that time, he didn't dare to disrespect you and didn't interrupt you. What you said may make sense, but I feel that although we can't be on guard against others, we shouldn't think too badly of others. I also know that the people in the martial arts world are sometimes very scheming, but justice lies in the hearts of people. Even if there is no heart, God is watching. Also, now that you have the ability, I don't want you to become a hero who is loved and respected by others. I just want you to become a righteous person who can face everyone with a grateful heart, a compassionate heart, and a chivalrous heart." These words seemed to be very far away, but Shao Hua felt as if they were right in his ears. Tears welled up in Shao Hua's eyes as a sense of homesickness inundated him. "Father, grandmother, mother, are you all right?" A grand ascension stage human, the center of attention of countless people, had finally found a trace of his lost memories in this faraway land. Chapter 4466. That's right. All law enforcers must have justice in their hearts. They must face all living things in the immortal world with a grateful heart, a compassionate heart, and a chivalrous heart. Only in this way can they face the thunder tribulation and their own immortal slaying stage with a pure heart. When Shao Hua's memories gushed out, he was extremely emotional. Wherever his thoughts reached, the immortal slaying stage in the space released faint lightning. This lightning killed all things and also gave birth to all things. In the midst of life and death, a suction force that made Shao Hua's mind feel extremely close was born. Shao Hua didn't need to think too much. His mind had already fallen into the space. In the space, the immortal slaying stage that had been flashing with lightning along with Shao Hua's comprehension of the thunder art, at this moment, seeing Jade Archive Shao Hua appear, it released a dazzling brilliance, like a thunder flower in full bloom. Jade Archive Shao Hua couldn't help but turn into a stream of light and fall into this thunder flower. Shao Hua's emotions were slightly shaken, and ring-shaped thunderbolts immediately appeared around his body. Crack, crack, crack. They rushed out in all directions. Su Ji and Fairy Xing Yu were stunned. Just as they were about to activate their Dharma power to resist, they saw the weakness in Shao Hua's eyes. Their hearts skipped a beat. The two of them looked at each other. With a flash of their bodies, they went far away, leaving the thunderbolts swimming around Xiaohua and flashing wantonly. Su Ji. Fairy Xingyue saw Xiaohua's figure looming in the thunderbolt, as if his whole person had turned into a thunderbolt. Her heart was filled with surprise as she whispered, "I can't understand Xiaohua anymore." "That's right." Su Ji also whispered, "Especially now. Back then, I saw Celestial Venerable Master of Laws personally make a move." Fairy Xingyu nodded and said, "In my memory, that palm was like the entire heavenly Tao appearing in front of my eyes. I feel that, even if I cultivate for another 100,000 years, I won't be able to compare to a grain in the Celestial Venerable's hand. Although Xiaohua's strength is not as strong as ours, from the thunder he turned into. I actually saw that kind of vague feeling, a feeling of the heavenly Tao overflowing. Could it be that he is the reincarnation of a Celestial Venerable?" Shoo. Although Su Ji knew that he was talking to Fairy Xingyu, he hurriedly stopped her from guessing. Xiaohua is Xiaohua. A Celestial Venerable is a Celestial Venerable. Even if it's an immortal king, it has nothing to do with us. We formed a relationship with Xiaohua in the 3 continents, but now that we've arrived at the celestial realm, I really don't know if this is fate or not. Let's just do what we need to do. Don't say too much. Fate? Fairy Xingyu's eyes were also watery. She raised her hand to hold Su Ji's arm, tilted her head slightly to Su Ji's shoulder, and whispered, "I'm really grateful to the heavens. If it weren't for this fate, my soul would have been destroyed long ago." "Well?" Su Ji's body stiffened slightly, and he slowly withdrew his arm. He forced a smile on his face and said, "Actually, as long as it's an immortal from the immortal realm, if they encounter such a situation, anyone would help." "Humph. How boring." Fairy Xingyue snorted coldly. "Not as interesting as Xiaohua." Sigh. Su Ji sighed and shook his head slightly. However, after a while, Fairy Xingyue smiled again and whispered, "Su Ji, you've never told me about your hometown. Since you've told me, tell me more about it." Su Ji looked at Xiaohua's figure flickering in and out of the lightning. This figure was sometimes in human form, sometimes in the form of lightning, and sometimes even in the form of a heart. Su Ji could feel the familiar aura of thunderous fury emerging from the core of this heart. Su Ji suppressed the surprise in his heart and didn't dare to disturb Xiaohua too much. He flew another 100 kilometers and released his divine sense. While guarding Xiaohua, he said, "My memories of my hometown have faded, but there are many interesting things that happened there. I remember when I was young." Fairy Xingyue cupped her cheeks with both hands and stared at Su Ji with a smile on her face. Weren't the memories that Su Ji was talking about her memories as well? She didn't know how long it had been since a man had been so patient and talked so tirelessly. He opened up the memories of time bit by bit, and gradually filled the cracks in her heart with love. Love was never an expression of ordinary people. The demon clan, cultivators, and immortals, no matter how long they had been cultivating, when love came, they had no power to resist. Because love was destined. It was irresistible and inexplicable. More than a month had passed, and the cold wind was gradually blowing. Su Ji frowned and looked at the flashing lightning in the distance. At this time, the lightning was different from before. The unruly and arrogant feeling was gradually gone, and the anger contained within was gradually born. Similarly, Xiaohua's figure had completely turned into a thunderbolt, but this thunderbolt was condensed into the shape of a heart. Su Ji. Fairy Xingyue was also a little impatient. She secretly whispered, "It seems that the time for the Star Moon Palace to appear is coming. Why don't we wake Xiaohua up?" "No." Su Ji spoke resolutely and decisively. "Even I've only encountered the lightning transformation stage twice in the immortal dimension. Xiaohua has just come into contact with the fury of thunder, and he can have such a realization. His future thunder cultivation technique is limitless. We'll go there ourselves. There's no need to wake him up." "But..." Fairy Xingyue was puzzled. Didn't your divination say that he is your hope? The mystery of opportunities is not something that can be understood by divination. Su Ji replied faintly, if I ruin Xiao Hua's opportunity for the sake of my opportunity, this opportunity, I'd rather not have it. Okay. Fairy Xingyue bit her lip and said, I'll listen to you. You go first. Su Ji glanced at Xiao Hua, as if he was worried. Fairy Xingyue stamped her feet in mid-air and said reproachfully, You're so scheming. I didn't think of waking Xiao Hua up. With that, Fairy Xingyue moved her body and left, taking advantage of the north wind. Su Ji thought for a while and set up a few simple restrictions. His body flashed with a blue watery light and disappeared in mid-air. However, just as the two of them flew 1,000 miles away, an earth-shattering sound of thunder came from behind them. Su Ji and Fairy Xingyue hurriedly stopped. Without releasing their divine senses, they saw that in the distant sky, a bolt of lightning shot straight into the sky like a jade pillar. In that bolt of lightning, Xiao Hua's godlike figure appeared. Looking at the space above Xiao Hua's head that had been torn apart by the lightning, layers of shadows fell. That shadow was like an inkstone, but also like a tombstone, exuding a kind of silence and desolation. Immortal. Immortal slaying stage? No, this is the sound of thunder from the fury of thunder. Su Ji could not help but exclaim, is Xiao Hua really a genius? He can comprehend the sound of thunder just by relying on the catalogue of the immortal slaying stage that I gave him? Buzz, buzz, buzz. As they spoke, an inexplicable sound rushed to them. Wherever this sound passed, not only did the ancient trees and withered grass on the ground turn into powder, but even the rocks and gravel on the surface of the ground were shattered. Whirlpools appeared on the water surface. Even the two immortals felt as if they were being whipped by thousands of whips. Fairy Xingyue said with a wry smile, I also want to deny it, but he doesn't have the aura of the immortal slaying stage on him. He can't cultivate the fury of thunder with the help of the immortal slaying stage. While the two of them were overestimating Xiao Hua's divine senses swept over. In just a moment, Xiao Hua's figure turned into a bolt of lightning and he asked curiously, Seniors, why didn't you wait for me? Fairy Xingyue rolled her eyes at him and said, We didn't dare to wait any longer. If we waited any longer, you would have become a celestial master. Hee, sorry. Xiao Hua said with a smile, I haven't been in closed-door cultivation for a long time. It's rare for me to be in closed-door cultivation today. I've kept you waiting. Oh. Fairy Xingyue hit the nail on the head and exposed Xiao Hua's lie. Haven't you been in closed-door cultivation in the heavenly prison for tens of thousands of years? How can you say that you haven't been in closed-door cultivation? Ouch. Xiao Hua touched his nose, as if he suddenly remembered something. He said anxiously, By the way, I remember something. What is it? Su Ji asked. Seniors, do you know where the water origin is in the 3 continents? Xiao Hua didn't intend to know the answer. He just wanted to change the topic. It was not beyond his expectations. Not only Su Ji, but Fairy Xingyue also showed a wry smile and said, Do you think the water origin is innate heavy water? I've cultivated for so long, but I've never seen the water origin. If you know where it is, please let me know in advance. I also want to watch the fun and broaden my horizons. Su Ji nodded and said, Xingyue is right. The origin is too rare. When a realm is born, the origin of the 5 elements will exist. However, as time passes, the origin will either dissipate in the realm or be obtained by others. I don't know how long the 3 continents have existed. They must have been obtained long ago, right? Moreover, not to mention with your cultivation, even with our strength, it would be useless to obtain this origin source item. Unless a heavenly venerable or immortal king. At this point, Su Ji stopped talking. He looked into the distance and said, Let's hurry. It's getting late. I'm sure the disciples of Zhai Xing Lu are waiting anxiously, all right. Xiao Hua successfully changed the topic. Although there was regret on his face, he didn't care. Let's go. Fairy Xingyue turned into the wind. Su Ji and Xiao Hua were like lightning, flying into the distance. In less than 10 days, there were more and more crimson rocks around the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. Sometimes, the crimson rocks almost covered the entire mountain range. Xiao Hua understood that they were about to reach the Chidi River. On this day, the sky had just brightened. The pale sun peeked out from the horizon. Fairy Xingyue's floating figure slowly slowed down. She raised her hand and pointed at a place that was almost invisible to the naked eye. We've reached Jai Xinglu. It seems that Xingyue Palace hasn't appeared yet. Let's go to Jai Xinglu to rest first. Chapter 44-67. As her fingers moved, Fairy Xingyu's face gradually changed, finally turning into the appearance of a graceful woman. Xiao Hua glanced at it and couldn't help but ask, "Senior, is this your original appearance?" Fairy Xingyu smiled and said, "Why? Are you reluctant to part with Princess Baihua?" "No." Xiao Hua stole a glance at Su Ji and replied, "Junior is just curious and casually asking." "Then what do you think?" Fairy Xingyu had no intention of answering Xiao Hua at all. Xiao Hua shrugged, indicating that he couldn't guess. Su Ji said indifferently, "Neither Xingyue nor I have our original appearances. Our appearances can't be revealed on the 3 continents. What you see is an illusion." "All right, this junior understands." Seeing that Su Ji's appearance had also changed, Xiao Hua tactfully shut his mouth. While they were talking, several divine senses and clear eyes swept over. When they landed on the 3 of them, they retracted their gazes happily. After a short while, a dozen or so Confucian martial grandmasters around the 7th grade of origin energy flew over. They were either dressed in Confucian robes or armor. When these martial grandmasters saw Fairy Xingyu, they bowed respectfully and said, "Subordinate greets Palace Master." N. Fairy Xingyu nodded and waved her hand to signal them to get up. She raised her hand and pointed at Su Ji and Xiao Hua, saying, "These are my good friends, Senior Su and Spiritual Master Xiao. When you see them, it's like seeing me." "Yes." The dozen or so Confucian cultivators didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly bowed to the 2 9th-level cultivators, saying, "Greetings, Senior Su and Spiritual Master Xiao." However, when the 3 words, "Spiritual Master Xiao," came out, several Confucian cultivators came to their senses and exclaimed, "Spiritual Master Xiao? Xiao Hua? Spiritual Master Xiao of the Fortune Gate?" Xiao Hua touched his nose, regretting that he didn't disguise himself. He nodded slightly and said, "Yes, it's me. It's really Spiritual Master Xiao. It's really Spiritual Master Xiao." At this time, the dozen or so Confucian cultivators were all excited. Junior thought that Spiritual Master Xiao had returned to the hidden Immortal continent. "I really didn't expect to see Senior here." Fairy Xingyu looked at Su Ji, who was somewhat neglected, and asked, "What's wrong? Is Spiritual Master Xiao very famous now?" "That's right, Palace Master. Don't you know?" A Confucian cultivator nodded vigorously. "Right now, 1 demon and 1 human are in the limelight in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. One of them is the heaven-defying Thunder Phoenix, who has just become a 7-star great saint. This great saint of the demonic race is the first great saint of the Great Holy Temple, and he was the one who facilitated the 7 saints to become sworn brothers. Although this great saint doesn't have any power of his own within the Thousand Demonic sacred realm, when he entered the Great Holy Temple, he attracted the congratulations of tens of thousands of stars. Who knows how many demonic races have benefited from this?" Another Confucian cultivator continued, "And this person is naturally the Fortune Gate's Daoist Xiao. It is said that Daoist Xiao fought the 3 great saints of the demonic race, the golden-winged great roc, the 5-colored sea god Shell, and the flying feather void beast alone in Bai Qingyu. He even commanded hundreds of thousands of Fortune Gate's disciples to massacre Bai Qingyu, flattening the heaven-concealing ridge and ancient Bell Mountain. If it weren't for the heaven-defying Thunder Phoenix, Taoist Shao, and the three great saints of the demonic race would have turned hostility into friendship, and I'm afraid that another great saint of the demonic race would have fallen. It seems, it's not that complicated. Xiao Hua rubbed his nose and wanted to explain, but before he could say anything, another Confucian cultivator shouted. Not only that, Taoist Shao was very angry because his good friend was suppressed in Bai Qingyu. When he ordered the Fortune Gate's disciples to return to the hidden Immortal continent, they were to kill the demonic race along the way. They must walk a bloody path. And the Fortune Gate's disciples did exactly that, steadily advancing from Bai Qingyu to the North Sea and East Sea. Wherever they passed, rivers of blood flowed, and many demonic races were killed. This is purely a rumor. Another Confucian cultivator hurriedly refuted, the information I received is not like this. The Fortune Gate's disciples did not kill too many demonic races, they only killed the demonic races that blocked their path. As long as there was no resistance, they never made a move. There are some problems with the information you received. Another Confucian cultivator with a slightly shorter stature shouted, his scarlet-red face showing a layer of agitation. Wherever the Fortune Gate's disciples went, all the demonic races in the 1,000 demonic sacred territory trembled in fear. None of them dared to show their prowess. Of course, according to this old man's knowledge, there are close to 400 to 500 demonic races and 37 demonic kings in the 37 demonic territories near the North Sea, and they are urgently discussing how to stop the Fortune Gate's disciples. However, because Taoist Shao had issued an order when the Fortune Gate's disciples set out, they were to kill anyone who stood in their way. Therefore, these demonic kings did not dare to act blindly without thinking, and they are currently seeking help from the Great Sage Hall. Damn it, this is so satisfying. At this point, the Confucian cultivator bowed deeply to Xiao Hua and said, Taoist Shao, Junior Zhu Hong is in charge of the star-picking tower in the 1,000 demonic sacred territory. Although Junior has not been humiliated in the 1,000 demonic sacred territory, in this demonic territory where humans are inferior to dogs, I have seen all the humiliation the demonic races have done to our human race. Junior has never been so happy as today. Taoist Shao is the pride of our human race, the leader of our human race. Taoist Shao, although your reputation is like the sun in the midday sky in the 1,000 demonic sacred territory, and this news has not been approved by the palace master, we dare not leak it. Even in the star-picking tower, not many people know about it. But rest assured, your reputation is like rolling thunder. Before long, before the Fortune Gate's disciples set foot on the hidden Immortal continent, your name will be known throughout the world. Seeing that the Confucian cultivators were so excited that they ignored her and were about to crowd around Xiao Hua, Fairy Xingyu's face turned sullen, and she said angrily, Xiao Hua, you. I treated you as a relative in vain. You caused such a big commotion in the 1,000 demonic sacred territory, and you didn't even tell me? Xiao Hua was speechless, and he argued, Senior, it's not that Junior didn't want to tell you. But this matter of fighting and killing really spoils the mood. Moreover, no matter how big of a commotion Junior caused, isn't it not as powerful as Senior Xingyu? Senior, look at your subordinates. Which one of them isn't an all-powerful figure? Which one of them isn't capable of doing earth-shattering things? It's just that they can't act casually for the sake of Xingyu's development. Junior didn't have such scruples and dared to act. Humph, your mouth is smeared with honey. Fairy Xingyu curled her lips in disdain, but her face was smiling like a flower. Su Ji frowned and asked, I forgot to ask you. Who is that little white dragon whose soul is similar to yours? Oh, his name is Xiao Bai. His original body was a giant python. Later on, he cultivated into a python dragon, and his physical body was destroyed. His primordial spirit cultivated with Junior, and after he took over Junior's body, it was somewhat similar to Junior's. The ancient Bell Mountain's demon king coveted Junior's fortune gate, and the seven-colored sea god Shell also had some matters to discuss with Junior, so they took Xiao Bai as Junior and captured him. Xiao Hua concisely explained the cause of the matter, but when Su Ji heard Xiao Hua mention the seven-colored sea god shell, a look of shock appeared on his face. He raised his hand and said, "It's not too late to talk about this in the star-picking tower." "Yes, senior." Xiao Hua hurriedly shut up. "Let's go." Fairy Xingyu ordered and flew to the front. Su Ji naturally ignored the Confucian cultivators and followed behind. Xiao Hua was about to follow when he saw the dozens of Confucian cultivators looking at him eagerly. He thought for a moment, slowed down, and raised his hand. "Fellow immortals, let's go together." "Yes, senior." Zhu Hong was overjoyed and flew over first. A few other Confucian cultivators hurriedly followed, and the rest flew at the back with smiles on their faces. Those who surrounded Xiao Hua were basically generals in armor. They were straightforward, and Xiao Hua's massacre of Bai Qingyu was very satisfying and greatly boosted the morale of the human race. They admired Xiao Hua greatly, and some of them became familiar with Xiao Hua in less than half a cup of tea. Seeing that Xiao Hua was not arrogant and was also Fairy Xingyu's relative, they soon talked about everything. Xiao Hua had always been curious about this mysterious Xingyu. It seemed that Xingyu's tentacles were spread all over the 3 continents. Not to mention anything else, even Fairy Xingyu and Su Ji didn't know that Xiao Hua massacred Bai Qingyu and led the troops south. But Xingyu had already received the news, and most of the news was true, which made Xiao Hua really admire her. Yingpa and Xiong Yi could be considered outstanding in this regard, but the Fortune Gate and the continuous merchant union were far inferior to Xingyu. Therefore, Xiao Hua himself also became acquainted with these Confucian cultivators. Looking at the mountain-like pavilion in front of him, Xiao Hua had already chatted a lot with these generals. Xiao Hua already knew that these dozens of Confucian cultivators were the masters of the star-picking tower in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. They had gathered here because Fairy Xingyu had closed the star-picking tower in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. It was also because they had made great contributions to Xingyu that Fairy Xingyu allowed them to enter the Star Moon Palace. Of course, these masters were puzzled by Fairy Xingyu's decision to close the star-picking tower. This was because the star-picking tower in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm was different from the hidden immortal continent and the pure land of ultimate bliss. There were many demon races in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm who were willing to trade with the star-picking tower in exchange for what they wanted. Similarly, the star-picking tower could also obtain demon fruits, demon herbs, and other things that the human race couldn't normally obtain from the demon races. It could be said that the star-picking tower's profits in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm were more than those of the hidden immortal continent and the pure land of ultimate bliss. Xiao Hua naturally understood Fairy Xingyu's plan. If the Star Moon Palace was as Su Ji had divined, it would be her and Su Ji's last chance. Moreover, it would also be her most confident chance. Therefore, Fairy Xingyu had to wrap things up well. Although the Star Moon Palace was huge, it might not have any supreme cultivators. At most, it might have some 9th grade Essence Force worshippers. If there were no supreme cultivators protecting it in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm, the star-picking tower would definitely be targeted by the demon race. If one of the many star-picking towers was invaded by the demon race, then, there would be a snowball effect. Not only all the star-picking towers in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm, but even the star-picking towers in the hidden immortal continent and the pure land of ultimate bliss would also be affected. Fairy Xingyu wouldn't let the star-picking tower fall to such a state. Therefore, she had made such a plan. Chapter 4468. Xiao Hua didn't think too much about it before, but when he saw how dejected these tower masters were, it was obvious that they didn't want to give up on their previous efforts. Of course, he couldn't tell these tower masters about Fairy Xingyu's plans, so he asked about the secrets of the 3 continents and the situation of the Dao sections. Xiao Hua's questions didn't involve Fairy Xingyu, so these tower masters didn't have any scruples and answered with a smile. In the end, Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat, and he suddenly asked, "By the way, I met a fellow immortal called Zhu Qing in the Bronze Pillar Nation star-picking tower. Do you know where he is now?" "Ioyo, I got it." A slightly powdery Confucian cultivator next to Zhu Hong slapped his forehead and shouted, "I'm Zhu Qing's good friend." Zhu Qing once said that he met an extremely interesting Dao cultivator in the Bronze Pillar Nation, and he admired this cultivator a lot. He said that this cultivator was only at the third or fourth stage of essence qi, but he needed a rare benevolent heart and filled the book of heroes of our star-picking tower. I really didn't expect that this Dao cultivator was Daoist Master Xiao. Xiaohua looked at the Confucian cultivator's coquettish appearance and his slightly pinched fingers, and goosebumps rose all over his body. He hurriedly shrunk his neck and asked, "Where is fellow immortal Zhu Qing now? I also want to ask him if his book of heroes is filled." "I'll let you know, Daoist Master Xiao." The Confucian cultivator smiled and replied, "Although Zhu Qing isn't a tower master and his strength is average, he has made a lot of contributions to our star-picking tower. Now, he has received the palace lord's favor and has been escorted to the star-picking tower." Very good." Xiaohua nodded slightly. He also understood that the so-called contribution should be the body of Princess Baihua. However, it was also because of Zhu Qing that Princess Baihua didn't die in the countryside. This drinking and pecking was really wonderful. While they were talking, the star-picking tower of the Thousand Demons' sacred realm was already in sight. This star-picking tower was different from the one Xiaohua had seen in the Bronze Pillar Nation. It was in the shape of a tower. This pagoda was different from the ordinary pagodas of the Buddhist sections. It was very fat and large. Just from afar, it looked like a square. The tower-shaped Zhai Xing Lu was divided into more than 10 levels. Each level had a different color, and each level was slowly rotating. Because of the different speeds and angles of the rotation, the light and shadow of the entire Zhai Xing Lu was constantly changing. Sometimes it was flames, sometimes it was colorful lotuses, sometimes it was flower buds. This light and shadow was really dazzling in the cold red mountain range. "Xiaohua, this is Star-Picking Tower's jade pendant." Fairy Xingyue, who had been flying in front, suddenly raised her hand and a stream of light flew over. She said, "Take this jade pendant and you can freely enter all the pavilions in Star-Picking Tower." "Okay." Xiaohua didn't mind and casually took it. The group of Confucian cultivators next to him raised their eyebrows and showed surprise in their eyes. However, this surprise disappeared in a flash and they didn't even exchange glances with each other. Boom! Just as Fairy Xingyue finished speaking, a layer of fiery starry flames suddenly appeared in front of her and Su Ji. This starry flame completely enveloped the space within a few miles. A wave of air mixed with cold ice immediately emerged from the void. Moreover, amidst the biting cold wind, the power of the stars and moon fell out of thin air. A chilling intent spread all over the place. He he. "Xiaohua, what do you think of my waning moon chilling star array?" Fairy Xingyue asked with a smile, ignoring the starry flames that had descended. She turned her head to look at Xiaohua contentedly. Upon hearing this, Xiaohua almost fell from the sky. He had been surprised when he saw the starry flames appear. Logically speaking, it was impossible for Fairy Xingyue to trigger a large array outside his Zhai Xing Lu. Now that he heard Fairy Xingyue's words, he understood that Su Ji had praised the capital star array of Black Wind Ridge very much. Xiaohua had replied with a little self-satisfaction, and Fairy Xingyue had remembered it. She was actually showing off here. "Elder sister." Xiaohua held his forehead with one hand and said, You are the master of Xingyue. How can I compare myself to you? My large array can only resist cultivators of the 4th grade of origin energy, but your large array can resist great demons and demon kings of the 7th or 8th grade of origin energy. This waning star chilling moon great array is far from being comparable to my Fortune Gate's capital star array. He he. Fairy Xingyue flicked her sleeve, and a brilliance like the stars gushed out and landed on the starry flames. The starry flames slowly extinguished and disappeared into the void. Then, Fairy Xingyue moved her body again. Just as she was about to move, Su Ji, who was beside her, said indifferently, "Although the waning moon chilling star array is sharp, it's much weaker than the capital star array." Fairy Xingyue's body also stagnated and fell a few feet before she flew up again. She turned her frosty face and stared at Su Ji, saying, "Su Ji, will you die if you say something nice?" After saying that, she ignored Su Ji and turned into a ray of starlight, disappearing instantly. Su Ji's expression did not change. He looked at Fairy Xingyue's back and moved his body. However, as soon as he moved, hundreds of meteor phantoms appeared from all directions, sealing off the area within 1,000 feet of Su Ji. Moreover, the space within this 1,000 feet swayed as if it was being blown by the wind. The meteors seemed to be dragging their tails as they struck Su Ji. Boring. Su Ji spat out 2 words indifferently. He raised his right hand and pointed his index finger at the void. Layers of water-blue lightning surged out like a fountain, rushing in all directions at an extremely fast speed. Kacha! Amidst the crackling sounds, all of the meteors were shattered and turned into nothingness. Then, Su Ji's body flew slowly and landed on the top floor of Zhai Xinglu in the distance. Sigh. Xiaohua shook his head helplessly behind the two of them. He secretly cursed, "Damn it, he's an immortal who knows how old he is, yet he's still involved in these romantic affairs. It's really nauseating. Senior Su, you obviously have some feelings for Fairy Xingyue. Why didn't you make it clear? When you appeared as Do Shanjun back then, weren't you also extremely handsome? Didn't those women from the Bronze Pillar Nation go crazy for you? Could it be that the real Fairy Xingyue doesn't dare to confess?" "Oh, I understand." Xiaohua came to a realization. According to Fairy Xingyue, Punisher Heavenly Venerate doesn't seem to get along well with Ruler Heavenly Venerate. If the two of them develop feelings for each other, I'm afraid it won't be easy to deal with. Damn it, it's really uncomfortable to be an immortal. Xiaohua flew back to the place where Su Ji had shattered the waning moon chilling star array. The aura of the shattered void had not been completely annihilated. Xiaohua's protective brilliance was still cut open. While Xiaohua had witnessed Su Ji's strength, he was also quite convinced by him. That day in the Bronze Pillar Nation, Xiaohua's bullying of Do Shanjun could be said to have caused Do Shanjun to lose face. Even during the battle at the Black Wind Ridge, Xiaohua had not let Do Shanjun off easily. Xiaohua now knew that Do Shanjun could have pinched him to death with a finger at that time. However, Su Ji had not taken out any special magical power. He had only used a Confucian magical power that was suitable for Do Shanjun to fight with Xiaohua. Even though he had been defeated, he had still used any magical power of the Dao sect. Xiaohua could not compare to his self-restraint and breadth of mind. It seems that the job of a punishment envoy is not something that any immortal can do. Xiaohua sighed. I don't know how Senior Su cultivated before he became an immortal. What kind of place is his hometown? It can actually cultivate such an outstanding immortal. Naturally, there were restrictions around the star-picking tower. However, since Xiaohua had the jade pendant given to him by Fairy Xingyue, he naturally would not be stopped. He also landed at the top of the star-picking tower. At the top of the star-picking tower was a palace that did not look big but had an enormous space inside. When Xiaohua entered, Su Ji was already sitting on a futon. He was holding a jade eye in his hand and looking at it with a frown. Fairy Xingyue was lying on a strange net woven from soft vines. She was suspended in the air and her snow-white jade feet were swaying like crystals. Xiaohua's gaze moved away from the toenails that were painted with starlight. With a wave of his hand, he picked up a spirit fruit that seemed to be 5 stars from a jade table and took a light bite. A ball of fiery juice rushed into his mouth. Xingyue. Su Ji put down the jade eye and looked at Fairy Xingyue. What happened to the 3 demon realms, Qijing, Yuanfeng, and Bingqin? Why didn't any of the demon realms survive? How would I know? Fairy Xingyue replied unhappily. The great sage hall forced me to close the star-picking tower. How would I know? Besides, it's just 3 demon realms. If they die, they die. Maybe it's the work of those heavenly kings in the Elysium world. The problem is that 5 temples in the Western Paradise were also destroyed. Su Ji asked. And these 5 temples covered a radius of nearly 1,000,000 miles. Whether it was the heavenly kings guarding the temple or the Buddhas in the temple, even the good men and women around the temple, they all disappeared. Don't you think there's something fishy about this? Of course I know. Fairy Xingyue replied unhappily. But these are the 3 continents, not the star field of the immortal realm. They are not under my control. Besides, even if I wanted to, I don't have the time. The Star Moon Palace is about to appear. Returning to the immortal realm is our biggest problem. That's true. Su Ji nodded. We don't have time. At this point, Su Ji intentionally or unintentionally looked at Xiaohua and said, but, other people have the time. Fairy Xingyue raised her eyebrows and said coldly, Su Ji, what do you mean? I worked hard to create Xingyue. I don't want to give it to a little money grubber. Xiaohua, even if it's you, don't even think about taking Xingyue. When Su Ji heard this, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Previously, when she saw that Xiaohua had some potential, Fairy Xingyue fought to give Xiaohua some benefits. However, when it came to giving Xiaohua something that belonged to Fairy Xingyue was stingy. He really didn't understand what Fairy Xingyue was thinking. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.